cut me off to prove a point that I could not escape to X like they teach you because they are the superior Russian spy. While Katy Perry was telling me in her song, "Oh, you're too trash. I can never love you because we're economically worlds apart. Even though we're both Democrats, I question your democracy, democratism." But I don't say words like that because I'm too smart. And I don't sing this bad either. I got some creepy German guy still living at his grandma's house. Cause you're hot when you're cold, it's yes when you're no. You're in then you're out. It's Americans and then Russians. Oh. It's wrong when it's right, it's black when it's right. Up and you're down, in then you're out. I really don't know the words of this song. It's you. Don't really know the words of this song. Hot then I'm cold, and yes then I know. In then I'm out, I'm up and I'm down. It was that song. I'm pretending my towel is a microphone. I use nightclub language. I am the only weak ass bitches here. I am the only weak ass bitches here. I'm enjoying it now before I have to go in here and die. Again. I'm dying. I am so good. I am so holy. I am the new Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic churches right here, they're all garbage. Just pile them up, just open them, throw them in the trash. God cannot save our priests from the devil. How can I expect God to save me? The best I can hope for is being rich in the treasures of heaven. Rich. Treasures of death. I think my neighbors just heard me saying all that. Oh God. That's all I have left. The truth and my faith. Getting dunked. Okay. I'm getting dunked. 1 second. Alright, bring me intelligent Democratic and Republican individuals and their fact-based freedom of media coverage.
They have these mountains of paperwork showing that this guy was paying all these really high hundreds of thousands of dollars in personal bills from accounts in places like Cyprus and the Grenadines. I mean, why on earth would somebody do that? It's not normal. The vendors all said either nobody's ever done this before or it's extraordinarily rare. And this may be the only gambit that they have if they can't find a stray juror.
Otherwise, he goes away for 30 years. Anyway, while Trump may be willing to comment on the Manafort case, it seems the White House is trying to keep the president's allies doing the same. According to Politico, more than a half dozen of Trump's most vocal TV surrogates, the ones on TV all the time, told Politico they weren't provided White House or campaign talking points in this case, as is customary for important headline-generating matters. Some interpret this as an attempt to keep them from talking about the trial on TV and to starve it of oxygen. Cynthia, Trump, let's see, you're talking about how it may leap over to him.
Right.
This bad news from Rick Gates that could be used against the president or used in his defense or whatever, used against him. The White House is very careful to keep its fingers away from this thing.
Well, here's the other thing.
This Manafort case.
Yeah, here's the other thing. About the time the prosecutors give all this information to Manafort is the same time that Giuliani suddenly starts to talk in that crazy interview on CNN about how there was another meeting that Gates was present. So I think they're seeing this, and it's affecting them.
Well, how's Mueller looking at this? Is this his first big battle he has to win?
He definitely needs to win it, and they're having they're not presenting the case that they hope to present. They're being forced to limit the evidence that they put forward. The judge is moving them along. Probably the witnesses are on the stand for half the time that the prosecution intended, but there really is a mountain of evidence here on tax evasion in particular, and cutting it down to half a mountain may not do much damage to Mueller's case, and denying him some of those atmospherics, the pictures of some of the more fancy items, not letting jurors see the photos. I think they probably can figure it out from the paperwork alone.
Prosecution still has the advantage.
Yeah,
it'll be done at the end of next week.
Thank you, Cynthia Oxley and Josh Gersten. And up next, by the way, what is QAnon and why are supporters of this fringe group, and the other pictures are of these guys, and its conspiracy theories showing up front and center at Trump rallies? They're going to be there tonight. Well, we got pictures of them. There's another crazy group out there that is aligning itself with Trump. This elite group of people led by Hollywood movie stars are out to screw you in every possible way, according to this group. This is Harpo where the action is.
At Farmers, we've seen almost everything, so we know how to cover almost anything, even vengeful vermin. Not so cute when they're angry. And we covered it. Talk to farmers. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Your brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
To most, he's Phil Mickelson, pro golfer. To me, he's, well, Dad. So when his joint pain from psoriatic arthritis got really bad, it scared me. And what could that pain mean?
Joint pain could mean joint damage. Enbrel helps relieve joint pain, helps stop irreversible joint damage, and helps skin get clearer. Enbrel may lower your ability to fight infections, serious, sometimes fatal events, including infections, tuberculosis, lymphoma, other cancers, nervous system and blood disorders, and allergic reactions have occurred. Tell your doctor if you've been someplace where fungal infections are common, or if you're prone to infections, have cuts or sores, have had hepatitis B, have been treated for heart failure, or if you have persistent fever, bruising, bleeding, or paleness. Don't start Enbrel if you have an infection like the flu.
Since Enbrel, Dad's back to being Dad.
Visit Enbrel.com and use the joint damage simulator to see how your joint damage could be progressing.
Ask about Enbrel. Enbrel. FDA approved for over 15 years.
VisuWorks can do more than just make you see great. The right pair of glasses can make you look amazing, too.
And our buy one, get one free sale is a great time to get a backup pair for when you leave them at school, by the pool, or over at Steve's. VisionWorks, we're here to help you.
Wireless for $15 a month. That's not right.
It's right, all right. Carpet showers? That's not right.
It's right. I'm right.
That's not right.
Neither is the way you get wireless. Mint Mobile took what's wrong with wireless and made it right. We're easy, online, and just $15 a month. Get your plan today at mintmobile.com.
I've yet to
Booking a flight at the last minute doesn't have to be expensive. Just go to Priceline. It's the best place to book a flight a few days before my trip and still save up to 40%. Just tap and go. For the best savings on flights, go to Priceline.
Have your headphones, chair, new laptop, 24/7 tech support.
Yep, thanks guys. I think he might need some support.
Start them off right with the school supplies they need at low prices all summer long. Save $200 on this Dell laptop at Office Depot Office Max.
Hate is on the rise in America. It's emboldened, normalized, and destroying lives.
When Gabe got those tattoos, I just thought his life was over.
I've dedicated my life to pulling people out of hate. I know how these people think and how to help because I used to be one of them.
I never had any money. Oh, there was Aunt Ro. Poor Aunt Ro had to house me. Sorry, Aunt Ro.
Welcome back to Harbor. Over the past few months, a fringe group of conspiracy theorists has gained a lot of attention. The group known as QAnon prominently backed President Trump. You see them there. On Monday, these internet devotees made up a significant segment of the crowd at that rally down, seeing those Qs down in Tampa. And here they are at tonight's rally up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, that's starting right now. See the Qs? A recent report in the Daily Beast detailed some of the group's conspiracies. Plotters in the deep state tried to shoot down Air Force One and foil President Trump's North Korea summit. A cabal of global elites, including top figures in Hollywood, the Democratic Party, and the intelligence agencies are responsible for nearly all the evil in the world, and now Trump is going to fix it all with thousands of sealed indictments, including sending the likes of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama straight to Guantanamo Bay. I'm joined by Will Sumner. He's author of that Daily Beast report. Will, thank you for joining us tonight. And it's an area that we're going to have to weigh into because we see real people, citizens of the United States, wearing Qs all over them. What do they believe? What is this all about?
It's pretty bizarre. So this all started on is kind of some obscure internet forums back in October, very cryptic clues. And so people have grabbed onto this, and they believe that essentially President Trump is engaged in a life or death, good versus evil struggle with sort of all these different evil cabals.
Well, you know, I think he's already got enemies. He points as the press, enemy of the people. It's the deep state. He's got the witch hunt. So he's got three known groups of people he calls the enemy. Is there a need by these people on the far, far, far Trump right to come up with somebody even more mysterious?
Apparently so. I mean, I think, frankly, these are people who are maybe disappointed that, you know, for example, Hillary Clinton hasn't been locked up. And so they just imagine this whole universe of these nefarious, you know, cults and blood sacrifices and all this kind of stuff. And these, as we've seen, I mean, these are people at...
Who makes these sweatshirts? Are these
They're all on Amazon. Go on Amazon. You can buy hundreds of these shirts. It's a booming business.
And where's it headed toward? Is it going to get violent? There's a guy chuckling about it. He doesn't look too dangerous, but he's enjoying himself. But look, there's somebody a little more serious. These are people that went out. I guess you emailed away, you go to Amazon to buy these T-shirts. I don't even get them.
You get your gear. I know there's someone at this rally with a giant wooden Q he's wearing, and so yeah, I mean these are people who they're real people. They had a rally in D.C. in April. A couple hundred people turned out.
And when they all get together, what do they agree on is this Q person or Q being or group. Who is the leader of this conspiracy thing to do all the right? This is a good conspiracy, right? They believe they're out there catching all the bad guys they don't like, right?
Right, exactly. So they think Q is sort of their ally, and they think it's someone in the Trump administration. They're obsessed with, you know, a reporter asking Trump, "Are you Q? You know, is it Michael Flynn?" They think maybe. I mean, it's all these ideas, but it's so crazy, but people do believe it.
And where's it going politically? Are they all going to vote for Trump?
Oh, absolutely. They're all hardcore Trump people. I mean, they think this is an issue of this is like the fate of the country hangs in the balance.
Who are the good guys in their Parthenon?
Pantheon. So Mattis, Putin, weirdly enough, Kim Jong-un.
All the good guys.
Yes.
This seems like extreme Trump.
Oh yeah.
Like if you want to do a Marvel comic figure and take that to that dimension where it's really simple Manichaean, you know, evil and good, and the good are all the Trumpies.
Exactly. It's almost like a fantasy world where, you know, normally in politics you might have an argument about tax cuts, but this is an argument about, like, you know...
Look at this.
This future. Yeah.
Are they going to endorse... Is Q, whoever, whatever they are, he is, QAnon, is this being going to endorse candidates?
It's funny you say that. I mean, it is already having a real-world effect. An armed man in an armored truck shut down a bridge near the Hoover Dam who was a QAnon believer. Q targeted Michael Avenatti. Someone showed up at his office, maybe with a weapon. It's strange stuff.
And it began last October. You started to follow it. And where's it ending this year? Where do you see it by this November, Election Day?
Let's say the Democrats say take back the House. I think probably Q comes up with a conspiracy theory about how the deep state stole the election. And I think it keeps going, unfortunately.
So the whole Trump phenomenon is not wacky enough. We're going further into that sphere. William, you can have this beat. You keep this beat. William Sumner. Well, thank you. Up next, Ivanka Trump is speaking out about an issue in which she and her dad may not see eye to eye. You want some hardball?
Managing my type 2 diabetes wasn't my top priority until I held her. I found my Traceba reason. Now I'm doing more to lower my A1C. I take Traceba once a day. Traceba controls blood sugar for 24 hours for powerful A1C reduction.
We'd been counting down to his retirement. It was our Traceba reason. He needs insulin to control his high blood sugar, and at his age, he's at greater risk for low blood sugar. Traceba releases slow and steady and works all day and night, like the body's insulin.
Traceba is a long-acting insulin used to control high blood sugar in adults with diabetes. Don't use Traceba to treat diabetic ketoacidosis, during episodes of low blood sugar, or if you are allergic to any of its ingredients. Don't share needles or insulin pens. Don't reuse needles. The most common side effect is low blood sugar, which may cause dizziness, sweating, confusion, and headache. Check your blood sugar. Low blood sugar can be serious and may be life-threatening. Injection site reactions may occur. Tell your prescriber about all medicines you take and all your medical conditions. Taking TZDs with insulins like Traceba may cause serious side effects like heart failure. Your insulin dose shouldn't be changed without asking your prescriber. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing, fast heartbeat, extreme drowsiness, swelling of your face, tongue, or throat, dizziness, or confusion. I found my Traceba reason. Find yours. Ask your healthcare provider about Traceba. Covered by most commercial health insurance and Medicare Part D plans.
Oi! Gotcha!
Quick! The quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker and is 2 times more absorbent. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
You shouldn't be rushed into booking a hotel. With Expedia's add-on advantage, booking a flight unlocks discounts on select hotels until the day you leave for your trip. Add-on advantage, only when you book with Expedia.
Did you know that 1/3 of Americans are affected by cybercrime? Every time you're online, your private information can be stolen, sold, or exploited. That's why you need NordVPN. Prevent hackers seeing your transaction details, protect your family's online activity, and keep your personal details safe by preventing your information from being tracked online. NordVPN. Protect your family with military-grade encryption on up to 6 devices from just $4 per month at nordvpn.com/TV today.
Hiring was always a huge challenge. Endless hours on job sites with not a lot to show for it. Then, I found ZipRecruiter. They figured out hiring. I post my job, they put it all over the web, and they send me the right people, because their technology is smart. ZipRecruiter often sends me the right person in 24 hours.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Try it for free today at ziprecruiter.com/star.
Remember that incredible night in November. Remember that incredible night. And you remember that we were way up in Pennsylvania, and there was only 2% of the vote left. And we were way up. If I lost every vote, we would have won the state of Pennsylvania. And the fake news refused to call it, right?
Welcome back to Harvard. That was Donald Trump right now at a rally in Wilkesboro, Pennsylvania, bashing the fake news, as he calls it. Earlier today, Ivanka Trump broke publicly with her father's administration on the media question. Let's watch her.
You think that we're the enemy of the people?
Sorry?
Do you think the media is the enemy of the people?
No, I do not.
That's not a view that's shared in your family.
Are you looking for me to elaborate?
No, I don't.
Well, Trump tweeted that Ivanka's answer was correct, noting that it's the fake news, which is a large percentage of the media, that is the enemy of the people. I'm joined now by the Horrible Roundtable tonight, Ginger Gibson, political correspondent for Reuters, Clarence Page is a columnist with the Chicago Tribune, and Jennifer Rubin is an opinion writer with the Washington Post. I want to start with Jennifer on this. Trump is serious about this. He's not really narrowing the group. We're the enemy of the people. I think he's getting into a frenzy. I'm thinking of Captain Queeg. You know, I'm beginning to think, there's something going on here. He's worried about the typhoon around him, of people coming at him, and he's attacking everyone.
That's right. I think he is desperate at this point. He is not the master of his own ship. He sees the polls. He sees a very good likelihood he's in the last few months of a Republican Congress. When that changes, all bets are off. He sees a trial that is proceeding down the emoluments trail. That means his wealth, his hotel is on the line. He sees horrible reviews for his meeting with Vladimir Putin, which he thought was a great success. And he sees Robert Mueller, who simply won't go away. All the antics, all the smears, it doesn't matter to Robert Mueller, and Trump can't do anything about it. So what does he do? He lashes out. And you can say that it's instrumental, that he's doing it in order to pump up his base. But I think this is a desperate man, and I think he's getting to the point where he's completely out of control.
Ginger, when he says fire Mueller, get rid of the whole operation to his attorney general, I refuse not to take that literally. Everybody has, he's just an 8-year-old kid banging in the crib. No. He's president of the United States, and when he says something like that, we damn well ought to take it literally.
He is president.
He's trying to obstruct justice, is what he's trying to do.
They've been telling us since he was running that we should take him seriously, but not literally. But he understands what literal conversations are, and
he wants out. He wants out. He wants to be free of any prosecution.
And he wants us talking about that instead of what his tariffs are doing to people who are getting ready to buy school supplies and what it's doing to farmers in states that voted for him. He would much rather fight with the press or send angry tweets about Robert Mueller than talk about the implications of some of his policies.
I think he's turning us third world. This is the kind of stuff in other countries where they have elections. They're not really elections. They have to wait for 3 days. Do we dare announce the results of the election? Oh, no, because somebody won't like it. Clarence, we used to accept reality.
It is a lot like the third world. The difference is the third world hasn't got the U.S. Constitution. They don't have the institutions that we have here. We see a lot coming to a head at this point here. Jennifer ran it all down very well, from the emoluments clause to the Russia investigation. And what's interesting is that he has no new tactic, no new responses. He's relying still on pumping up the base, which I don't know how it gets any more pumped up. We've all marveled at how solid it is and impenetrable, but it's not growing, and still a minority of the country, And then you've got the bashing of the media, which everybody does. He just does it more relentlessly, but it begins to lose some of its power, except with this new QAnon movement. It's doing great T-shirt sales.
Yeah, there's a big difference. I want to stick on this point because Nixon would say the press is the enemy, meaning they're adversarial, and there is obviously an adversarial relationship between people in power and the press.
He had enemies list, remember?
But he meant by list my personal enemies. He didn't think they were enemies of the people. This guy's totally did this out. Henry Gibson, enemy of the people, is a lot larger than my enemy. This is that they're my enemies. Ginger?
There's
a difference.
He wants to try to discredit anything that would have credibility against him. He is a man who cares about messaging and perception, and he thinks if he can undermine all of the media, it undermines anything they could write about them. Sure. But the First Amendment doesn't say a fair press. It doesn't say a press that is nonpartisan. It doesn't say a press that Donald Trump likes. It just says the press, and that's a problem that he's going to face.
Well, at a rally that rally tonight up in Wilkes-Barre, Trump says weighed in on his recent summit with Vladimir Putin already tonight and the Mueller probe. Let's watch him tonight in Wilkes-Barre.
We got along really well. By the way, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. That's a really good thing. Now, we're being hindered by the Russian hoax. It's a hoax, okay? I'll tell you what, Russia's very unhappy that Trump won, that I can tell you. But I got along great with him. And everybody said, wow, that was great. A couple of hours later, I started hearing these reports that, they wanted me to walk up. Here's a podium here. They wanted me to walk up and go like this. They wanted me to go up and have a boxing match. I said, whatever happened to diplomacy?
I'm being hindered by the Russian host.
Well, here's a problem, which is that the Russians, according to all the investigators we got in this country, are still at it. They're still poking around, so they're going after Claire McCaskill, Gene Shaheen up in New Hampshire. They're still at it. All his top people came out tonight. Dan Coast, head of the National Intelligence, all said they're up to it again. And here he is saying we got no problem with Putin.
Right. And you have John Bolton going out and said, oh, yeah, the president understands this. The president wants us to do everything he wants to. The only problem is the president isn't saying that. These guys are running their own foreign policy because they don't agree with the president. The president is exercising no leadership. And he's telling you right there and then. He did not want to confront a power that is hostile to the United States. He's confessed. He's a patsy. He doesn't have the nerve to stand up to Putin in public. Gosh, imagine if Barack Obama said that.
You know, Clarence, you and I have covered this, and everything in politics and nothing like this. He has basically said, I don't care if the Supreme Court burns down to the ground. I don't care if the press burns down to the ground. The Congress, the United States government, everything. As long as I'm still standing.
Well, he's personal.
In terms of reputation, he's willing to destroy everyone's but his own.
Yeah, but if he loses his Congress, that's going to be a lot to lose. That's his protection. That's the base of his power right now. And where he goes from here, that's a very big question.
You think he knows all this?
He knows that much. I mean, we picked that up in the second grade, I would think, you know. But,
well, Nixon, in the middle of the night when he got reelected overwhelmingly with 60-some%, he said to Colson, one of his buddies, in that back room when they're sitting there listening to Victory at Sea, you know, he goes, we've just lost the House again. We have lost the power of subpoena. They're coming at me. Nixon understood the power of subpoena. You think Trump understands all this?
I think Trump understands that.
Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff, all these guys are going to have the power of subpoena to bring anybody they want to get the truth out of them.
He understands that if he loses the House, it's a problem. Except he just doesn't agree with what they're saying is this tactic and strategies to keep the House. He thinks the way to do it is to shut down the government and talk about immigration every day. And nobody over at Congress agrees with him. And that's the real problem.
Well, the ones in tricky seats, like we know, Barbara Comstock across the river from here says, I'm not shutting down the government.
Right, no matter how much he wants.
They want to hold on to their seats, not the wall.
That's exactly right. The last thing they want is a big old fight about immigration and a wall that 60% of the American people disagree with. So every time Donald Trump does that, their skin must crawl because the people back home are saying, why doesn't somebody stand up to this crazy guy? And even the Barbara Comstocks or the people in moderate swing seats, they're making a majority that basically does his bidding.
Exhibit A of the humiliation. Look, I don't have a problem with a lot of people in politics. There's a few people I do have a problem with, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders has a job to do. I don't want it. I wouldn't take that job, but she's got it. And today she was asked by Jim Acosta of CNN, do you believe the press is the enemy of the people? Do you? And she dodged. She dodged. I looked at her, I said, this woman is very unhappy in the world. Her existential being right now has been forced to choose between her conscience and her job. Let's watch it. Let's watch that. Jim Acosta asking Sarah Huckabee Sanders about this contention.
It's ironic, Jim, that not only you and the media attack the president for his rhetoric when they frequently lower the level of conversation in this country. Repeatedly, the media resorts to personal attacks without any content other than to incite anger. The media continues to ratchet up the verbal assault against the president and everyone in this administration, and certainly we have a role to play, but the media has a role to play for the discourse in this country as well.
The President of the United States should not refer to us as the enemy of the people. His own daughter acknowledges that, and all I'm asking you to do, Sarah, is to acknowledge that right now and right here.
I appreciate your passion. I share it. I've addressed this question. I've addressed my personal feelings. I'm here to speak on behalf of the President. He's made his comments clear.
There, she blew it. She blew it right there. Tonight, she could have said, I don't think you're the enemy of the people. Anyway, the president tonight blamed the press for bad coverage of his visit to the Queen tonight. Let's watch that from Wilkesboro.
So here was the story by the fake news. The president was 15 minutes late for the Queen. Wrong. And then here's the rest of the story. No, here's the rest. Here's the rest of the story. So they said I was late when I was actually early, number one. Number two, I guess the meeting was scheduled for 15 minutes, and it lasted for almost an hour. The president overstayed. So I was late, and I overstayed, and honestly, folks, it was such a beautiful, beautiful visit and afternoon. But they can make anything bad, because they are the fake, disgusting news.
I have no idea what he's talking about, and I'm not going to think about it anymore. The roundtable's sticking with us, and up next, these three will tell me something I don't know. You're watching Hardball.
I visualize travel rewards. I receive travel rewards.
Going new places. Oh, going out for a bite. Going anytime. Rewarded.
Learn more at theexplorercard.com.
When I first got to LA, I wanted to get closer to my kid.
This was fun.
And I wanted to make a movie.
Hope it lives up to the hype.
I just hope it's as good as the other English period dramas you like.
Windsor should be able to fill you in on this problem.
You can't fix this.
Am I gonna get my money?
You and Katie are getting divorced.
What happened to the guy that shot you?
Is it going to win an Oscar? No. But it's a totally respectable.
He's sitting there.
Get shorty. Only on Epics.
Getting to know. Getting to know all.
They have several of their castles just in their garage.
Know how your DNA connects you to the world. Get 30% off each kit at 23andme.com or a local retailer.
That's like saying, oh, there's your fair little brown over in the corner. I mean, yeah, it's going to work out.
Promote what makes your business great with Vistaprint business cards. With more shapes, paper stocks, and finishes to choose from, you can create the card that's right for your business. 500 standard cards start at just $9.99 when you enter promo code 500cards at Vistaprint.com.
We're going to make brand new 16th century
We'll be right back with the Hardball Roundtable, and up next, these three will tell me something I don't know. You watch the Hardball.
It's
the Ford Summer Sales Event, and now is the best time to buy.
Classic campfire trout.
Say what?
Trout.
All right. You don't think I need both?
You're talking about Mike
Make
Trout.
summer go right with Ford, America's best-selling brand. Now get 0% financing for 72 months plus $1,000 Ford credit bonus cash on a great selection of SUVs. During the Ford Summer Sales Event, get our best offer of the season. 0% financing for 72 months plus $1,000 Ford credit bonus cash.
Grubhub is a delivery app that lets you order from all your favorite local restaurants. So you can order this, or this, or maybe a little bit of this. Order from over 80,000 restaurants nationwide. Grubhub, restaurants you love, delivered.
I'm Catherine Cherry. I'm a registered Democrat. I clerked for Judge Kavanaugh for a year. Judge Kavanaugh is a brilliant jurist. You can rely on Judge Kavanaugh to follow precedent. You can rely on Judge Kavanaugh to follow the U.S. Constitution and the laws as they're written. He also treated me as an equal and never made me feel like a minority. And he treated the litigants who come before him the same way. He treats everyone equal under the law. As a woman and a minority, I'm confident that Judge Kavanaugh will be a great justice.
I can't say I'm right or wrong for you. My time here is pure and short. But to attack my faith or the truth, which I would say,
You definitely do
is
something
not
about it.
No
Well,
matter
it is. An identity is stolen every 2 seconds. And you can do something about it with Experian. See if your social security number, phone, and email are at risk with a free dark web triple scan at Experian.com/scan. Experian. Identity protection has a new identity.
Insurance that won't replace the full value of your new car? You're better off throwing your money right into the harbor.
Gucci came with that idea.
I regret that. With Liberty Mutual new car replacement, we'll replace the full value of your car.
It's gonna be yes, but like yes. I don't like this guy.
We're back with the Roundtable. Ginger, tell me something I don't know.
The fight between Trump and the Koch brothers continued to escalate today. And we saw the chairwoman of the Republican Party criticizing the Kochs for putting business ahead of the party. This is a fight that could cost some Republican candidates real dollars in the November election.
So the RNC siding with Trump over the Koch brothers.
Yes.
Well, I can't say I have a dog in that fight. Clarence.
It's fun to watch. Chris, we all know about the right to bear arms. How about the right to bear knives? For the last 8 years, in fact, at least there's been a crusade going on to try to get rid of knife control laws. Yesterday, August 1st, Louisiana became the 29th state to pass laws, in their case, legalizing switchblades and carrying them.
Why would people want to switchblades?
Same reason people want to carry a concealed carry for guns.
Jennifer.
We're right now having the Warm Up Act on the confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh. Right now, they're fighting over the documents that should have come out, according to Democrats, from the Bush administration. Wait till they start demanding documents from the Federalist Society, who handpicked this guy and stuck him on a list. And wait till they start making inquiries, as I think they will, that Donald Trump should not be picking the guy who's going to rule on an ongoing federal prosecution.
We'll see. Thank you, Ginger Gibson, Clarence Page, and Jennifer Rubin. When we return, let me finish tonight with Trump Watch. He won't like this one. It's a big one tonight, I think. You're watching Hardball.
There's a common thread I see every time I'm in the field. While this is burning, you were saving other homes. Neighbors helping neighbors, and strangers alike.
This is what America's about.
Sometimes it's nice to see all the good that's out there. Bringing folks out, we have seen it in community after community.
Morning Joe speaks truth to power. He is destroying the Republican Party for years to come with access to the people who matter. From the halls of Congress to the Oval Office. Morning Joe, weekday 6 to 9 on MSNBC.
Any conspiracy theory, period, because I've been diagnosed with schizophrenia. If I start going on believing conspiracy theories, it's just because I'm delusional. They're not reality. Prove it. Bring the evidence to the courtroom.
Okay, bold and name your price tool.
When I deny
Power of
it,
options
then,
based on your budget.
Then it's just like, it's okay if you deny it. It's just stupid because it's schizophrenia. Okay?
We use Angie's List because we can always find great local pros.
For any type of home project.
I use Angie's List because it's free.
Free to read reviews.
Check their ratings.
They can even match my project to qualified pros.
Go to angieslist.com today.
If your moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's symptoms are holding you back, and your current treatment hasn't worked well enough, it may be time for a change. Ask your doctor about Entyvio, the only biologic developed and approved just for UC and Crohn's. Entyvio works at the site of inflammation in the GI tract and is clinically proven to help many patients achieve both symptom relief and remission. Infusion and serious allergic reactions can happen during or after treatment. Entyvio may increase risk of infection, which can be serious. PML, a rare, serious, potentially fatal brain infection caused by a virus, may be possible. This condition has not been reported with Entyvio. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, experience frequent infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Liver problems can occur with Entyvio. If your UC or Crohn's treatment isn't working for you, ask your gastroenterologist about Entyvio. Entyvio, relief and remission within reach.
Shoes off! Belts off!
That's why I wear Skechers slip-on shoes. They're comfortable, and they come in a variety of styles. They slip on and off easily as well.
You're Tony Romo.
I am.
You still gotta lose the belt.
Slip into comfort with Skechers slip-on.
You know you love watching sports and your favorite show or movie in HD, especially when it's free. Spectrum TV gives you more free HD than any provider, including thousands of on-demand options. Enjoy Spectrum TV.
In just a few clicks, you can protect up to 6 devices for just $4 per month. Don't risk being hacked. Install NordVPN at nordvpn.com/TV today.
This is Vicky. Vicky may not look like a crime-fighting superhero.
Well, with Ring she is. Tell us how you did it, Vicky.
Okay. I was home alone at night when I got an alert from Ring there was somebody at my front door. Then I saw this guy, and I said, "Hey, you! Get off my property!"
Then Vicky shared that video with her neighbors, keeping everyone safe.
It was easy, really.
Typical superhero.
Be like Vicky and protect your home with Ring. Go to ring.com and these fine retailers.
Secure the room. We need to protect the biohazard.
Trump Watch, Thursday, August 2nd, 2018. President Trump's behavior is increasingly growing frantic. I'm sure I'm not the only one to notice this. Each day, his actions are those of a man facing some unclear but imminent danger. There's a sense of desperate nervousness about him, as if the big woeful attack is coming and there's nothing really he can do to stop it. I say this because of his own attacks are now going in all directions. It's a witch hunt that's coming at him from the Justice Department's special counsel. It's the deep state that's out to get him. It's the fake media that's advancing to report the verdict. He acts and speaks and tweets as if all the forces of nature and society are converging upon him. What can a serious observer make of this weird behavior by the figure elected to head the country in 2016? Is it paranoia? As the man we see on camera in the Oval Office or tweeting so desperately at the crack of dawn lost touch with reality? Or is he finally, after all these wild months, realizing what he's unleashed? That all the accepted measures of truth and justice are now aligning, and to his near and present horror about to strike with a stark power he's never before had to confront. I suspect this, for him, is the stark and awful truth. And that's Hardball for now. Thanks for being with us. All In with Chris Hayes starts right now.
Tonight on All In.
The pretext of the meeting was, hey, we have information.
The special counsel is negotiating an interview with the man who set up the Trump Tower meeting.
I've been accused of influencing.
And bad news for Roger Stone.
These are scary times.
Tonight we're learning about where Robert Mueller is headed. Then, bank fraud, oligarchs, and more suits on day 3 of the Manafort trial.
That's obviously what our position is.
And the White House affirms the president's position that the free press is an enemy of the people.
I think the president has made his position known.
When All In starts right now. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We're learning more tonight about how Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation is closing in on the president and his inner circle. NBC News is reporting tonight that conversations are ongoing between the special counsel and Emin Agalarov. That would be the Russian pop star who is instrumental in setting up that infamous June 2016 meeting in Trump Tower. In an email exchange, you might remember, a British music promoter named Rob Goldstone, who represented Emin, wrote to John Jr., quote, "Emin just called and asked me to contact you with something very interesting. The Crown Prosecutor of Russia met with his father Aras this morning, and in their meeting offered to provide the Trump campaign with some official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary in her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to your father. This is obviously very high-level and sensitive information, but is part of Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump, helped along by Aras and Emin." According to the Wall Street Journal, Mueller first made that request in the fall, but Emin isn't the only person Mueller wants to speak with. A federal judge ruled today that a former aide to Roger Stone, that would be U.S. citizen and confidant of the president, must testify before the grand jury despite an attempt to get out of the appearance. Roger Stone, of course, former Trump campaign advisor, who you will recall, appears in Mueller's indictment of 12 Russian intelligence officers for hacking Democratic groups in the election. Stone appears to be referenced as an unnamed person in contact with an online persona set up as a front by Russian intelligence officers. And Stone himself acknowledges he is of interest to Mueller.
Are you preparing to be indicted? I am prepared should that be the case. But I think it just demonstrates, again, this was supposed to be about Russian collusion, and it appears to be an effort to silence or punish the president's supporters and his advocate.
Of course, Mueller and his team continue to negotiate for the biggest interview of them all. Donald Trump himself. Washington Post reporting the special counsel has offered to limit questions to the president and to accept some answers in writing in an attempt to get the president to the table. And all this happens as a trial of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort hits day 3, and as a parade of administration heavy hitters today said that Russia is still trying to attack U.S. elections, even as some of those key administration officials admit they don't entirely know about the relationship between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin.
You're saying today that the president has directed you to make the issue of election meddling a priority. How do you explain the disconnect between what you are saying, his advisors, and what the president has said about this issue?
I'm not in a position to either understand fully or talk about what happened at Helsinki.
For more on where Robert Mueller is headed tonight, MSNBC political contributor David Cohn, co-author of Russian Roulette, The Inside Story of Putin's War on America and the Election of Donald Trump, and NBC News senior investigative producer Anna Schechter. One of the bylines on that story about Mueller's pursuit of Emin Agalarov, and let me start with you, Anna. So what do we know about the status of this back and forth between Emin Agalarov and the special counsel?
Well, we don't know exactly where it's going, but right now his attorney is in conversations with Robert Mueller, and they're trying to figure it out. Emin is trying not to come to the United States. It's unclear right now if Robert Mueller can compel Emin to come to the United States and sit for an interview.
Why would he? I mean, he's not. How would he compel him, right? I mean, there's all sorts of Russians they've indicted. There's all sorts of Russians they presumably would like to speak to who they can't compel. Why would he be able to compel him?
Well, right now we're trying to figure out his citizenship status, so that might have implications, but we really don't know. So this reporting is ongoing.
David, the Roger Stone associate, who has been told by a court that he has to testify to a grand jury, reminds us that Roger Stone remains someone who's not been contacted by Robert Mueller and who's actually been named in an indictment. Or not named in an indictment, identified or cited in an indictment.
Yes, Roger Stone was in contact with a Russian intelligence front, Guccifer 2.0, cyber persona that leaked some of the material that was stolen, criminal action from the Democratic National Committee and by other Democratic targets. And, whether Stone has any criminal exposure here or not, it's important to keep in mind that when this was happening in the summer of 2016, Stone was out there while others were saying Guccifer is part of a Russian operation. Stone, working with the Breitbart right-wing publication, were out there insisting that Guccifer 2.0 was what it claimed to be. A lone Romanian hacker, had nothing to do with Russia. So what he was doing was advancing, supporting, bolstering a Russian disinformation campaign designed to cover up a Russian attack on the United States. That's what Roger Stone was doing in the summer of 2016.
To the sort of status of Mueller and Agalarov, right? Agalarov is central to this because he and his father are the sort of hosts of Donald Trump back, right? When they host Miss Universe.
2013.
Right, 2013.
Trump
and they're
showed
the
up
vector.
in a music video.
Right. They're business. Aris Agalarov and Emin are his business partners. It's Emin's idea to bring Miss Universe to Moscow in 2013, and a deal is cut. If this happens, he gets to perform there. And Aris Agalarov is a very Putin-connected oligarch, so Donald Trump in 2013 was going to make money off this only because he was working with a Putin-friendly oligarch, and that sealed a relationship that then came to fruit in 2016 with the email that you just read from Emin.
There were also conversations about potentially introducing Putin to Trump. So Emin had made overtures to offer that kind of a meeting, which never materialized. But these conversations happened between 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. There was contact between Emin wanting to be close to the president, and there's even video online where you see him talking to his publicist Rob Goldstone. How can we capitalize on Donald Trump, who's the Republican nominee? We want to get into the American market. They don't know, but we can use this to our advantage. So it's a really interesting relationship.
There's also the fact that to what Anna was saying before about any leverage Mueller might have, Agalarov kind of has a foot in the U.S., right? I mean, the family's got a home here. He was schooled here. He's been back and forth.
Well, Emin wants something. He has wanted to be big in the United States. He's a middling-level pop star in Azerbaijan and in Russia, and he's the son of an oligarch, so, that has helped his music career. But one reason he hooked up with the Miss Universe contest in 2013 was that he was hoping to make it big in the United States, and being part of that event would help. So I think he's had some tours here. I think he has one coming up in a couple of months. So if he wants to retain the ability to perform in the United States, that is a point of leverage that Robert Mueller would have on him, and his father has business interests here too.
Does that square with what you've been reporting?
Yeah, but we'll see. I don't know that he's going to want to be coming to the United States right now. Right now, he knows he's in hot water, so he's sweating right now. Right now, he's nervous. He's like, this Trump Tower meeting, he's feeling bad about that. He's like, I wish I had nothing to do with that. His dad was the one who asked him to call Don Jr., and he's like, come on, Dad, I wish you'd never gotten me involved.
Right, well, we should note that he actually ends up having a phone conversation with Don Jr. Yes. Don Jr. says he can't remember it, but he admitted to it. And if I were him, I mean, just free legal advice, Evan, I would not fly to the U.S. Expecting that you're going to be unmolested. I mean, the Mueller team we already know has been doing operations where they meet people at airports, flash a badge, and take them into a room to question them.
And you think about this personality. This is a playboy. He surrounds himself with beautiful women. For him, the Miss Universe pageant was the best thing that ever happened to him. He's not a serious guy. And so all of a sudden, the weight of the Robert Mueller investigation is coming down on him. And he doesn't know. I mean, who knows? Could Putin have been talking to Aras, his father, about setting up this meeting with Natalia Veselnitskaya? We really don't know. There are a lot of questions, and that's why Mueller wants to talk to them.
And one big question that's hanging out there is, by the account of Donald Trump Jr. and others who participated, not much came out of the meeting. That's what they say. But then the question I have is, what happened after the meeting? Did Donald Trump, I mean, if you told me, Chris, you were sending me somebody with great information for a story that I could break, and I had a meeting and not much came out of it, first thing I would do afterwards is call you and say, what gives? What happened? And we don't know what happened, and that call would have been made probably to Emin.
The story that we got is that this thing comes in over the transom from this person they know from Russia, who they have a relationship with, who says the Russian government wants to get your dad elected, and he's got dirt. They set up a meeting that the son-in-law, the campaign manager, and the son attend with a whole bunch of people, including a translator, and nothing happens, and everyone just says, oh, well, you know.
Yeah, that's
on
it.
to the next one.
Yeah.
David Korn and Anna Schechter, thank you both for being here. Here to help me understand where the investigation is, where it could be going, former Assistant Watergate Special Prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst Jill Wine-Banks, and New York Times Washington correspondent and MSNBC national security contributor Michael Schmidt, whose latest report is headlined, Trump pushes for interview with Mueller against lawyers' advice. And Michael, let me start by just being wildly cynical. Convince me that Donald Trump actually does want to talk to Robert Mueller, because it seems to me that that's maybe unlikely, or maybe it's the public posture or position of people around the president, and of course he wants to talk to Mueller, but I remain skeptical that he actually does.
Yeah, look, the president has shown from before he was a president until now that he believes he can explain anything to anyone, that he can sit down and convince them to see the world through his eyes and to understand where he's coming from. In this case, he believes he can sit down with Mueller and show him that he has nothing to hide and bring this investigation to an end. I understand that some people may be skeptical of this, but what that skepticism sort of implies is that the president is thinking three-dimensionally, and I don't think we've seen him do that in many cases, certainly in regards to the investigation. He tends to think one sort of base at a time, reacts to things, tweets, pops off about them, and I think that's what we're seeing here.
What do you think, Jill, about the ultimate, about the sort of dynamic here that has emerged between Mueller, the president, and his legal team?
Well, first of all, I agree with your perspective on this. I am skeptical as to whether he really does want to, or whether this is just part of his public relations campaign to say, I have nothing to fear, I want to do this. And I also agree with Michael that he probably does actually believe that he can con everybody into believing what he says, because he has been successful at that. A lot of people do believe him despite evidence to the contrary. So what do I think? I think that actually he has done enough obstruction in plain sight, and probably enough conspiracy with the Russians in plain sight, that his testimony isn't really necessary. Yes, it would be helpful, and I think that there's some amount of negotiating that the prosecutor can do to allow him to have a chance to get his story before the grand jury, so that nobody can later say, well, he didn't have a chance to convince them of the truth of his position. This way he will have had his chance. But I don't want to see him having too many questions answered in writing, which won't be his answers. They will be legally drafted and crafted as carefully as possible. And I don't think he should be allowed to not answer questions on any particular topic.
Michael, I can't tell whether the conversations and the back and forth between Mueller's team and the president's team, which we get a kind of one-sided reporting on, Giuliani will talk openly about it. Is this just going around and around, or is there actual progress being made? Which of the two do you think it is?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of both. The negotiations have been going on for about 8 months. There are these discussions. There's been posturing on both sides. Mueller, at one point earlier this year, threatening to subpoena the president. The president's lawyer at the time, John Dowd, saying they would fight it all the way to the Supreme Court. So this is sort of a negotiation. And when you have someone like the president, prosecutors are going to be sensitive to that and are going to be willing to do things and do accommodations that they wouldn't do normally. In the case of Bill Clinton, he was allowed to be questioned at the White House for his case. At the same time, the president's lawyers have said we're about 2 weeks away from making a decision for several months now. Right. And so the question is this sort of a rope-a-dope where they're trying to extend Mueller as far as possible, drag out the negotiations, perhaps to delay a report from going to Congress before the midterm elections, and then sort of take it from there? Is that what's going on? As a reporter who has been told we're very close for several months, it's hard not to think that.
Yeah, it's like we should talk to Mueller, stage directions, they do not move. It's basically been what we've been seeing. Do you think, Jill, I mean, ultimately the question that hangs over all of this, right, is like how much there's a kind of political calculation of capital from the Mueller side, right? Which is that, like, they can go to a subpoena. You could subpoena the President of the United States. It's going to get fought. It's going to go to the Supreme Court, probably. But that's a big fight. That's a kind of political capital draining fight. How do you think they're thinking about that calculation?
Well, I think that they would ultimately win that case. I think that the Watergate-Nixon case makes it very clear that the president is not above the law and can be subpoenaed. That was a case for documents. This would be for testimony. But I don't think that there's a significant difference in terms of the law. So I think they would win. But if you go back to my prior point, it's not worth the fight, because why would they waste their time? What are they going to ultimately get? Is it really, really critical for going forward? And I suppose if you have a report and you want to be able to rebut what the defense will say, it is better to have him on record. So it would be good to have his testimony on record, and then you can rebut it in your report. So that would be the only real advantage to doing it.
Jill Wine-Banks, that makes a lot of sense. Jill Wine-Banks and Michael Schmidt, thanks for making time. Next, breaking news tonight about a major Trump donor that, get this, agreed to pay Michael Cohen $10 million while he was still the president's personal attorney just months ago. I'll talk to the reporter that broke that remarkable story after this 2-minute break. Don't go anywhere.
Traders, they're always looking for advantages. The smart ones look to Fidelity to find them. We give you research and data visualization tools to help identify potential opportunities, so you can do it this way, or get everything you need to help capture investment ideas and make smarter trading decisions with Fidelity for just $4.95 per online U.S. equity trade. Fidelity. Open an account today.
If you're curved below the belt, you may not know what caused it, and you may not know what to do. A significant curve may be a medical condition called Peyronie's disease, and there are thousands of other men out there who may also have it. Many may go undiagnosed. Talk to a urologist about Peyronie's disease, and to learn more, visit learnaboutpd.com.
You know why God made snakes before lawyers? He needed the practice. Gainful employment, and in 10 months, poof, I'm a lawyer again.
Why don't you stop running the game on me and just tell me about the job?
Step into my office.
Fair? Let's talk about fair.
I decide what he deserves. Wish me luck.
If you have Spectrum Internet, then you have Spectrum Wi-Fi, which means you have access to over 500,000 hotspots nationwide. Just search for Spectrum or cable Wi-Fi in your network settings and sign in with your username and password. Once logged in, your device will connect the next time you're at a Spectrum Wi-Fi hotspot. Now you have unlimited data with no speed throttling. Take your internet with you with Spectrum Wi-Fi.
Brand new reporting tonight on Trump fixer Michael Cohen and the vast amount of money he charged in consulting fees since the election. In addition to the $1.2 million he got from Novartis, the $600,000 from AT&T, $500,000 from the Russian oligarch-connected investment firm Columbus Nova, and the $150,000 from a South Korean aerospace company, Michael Cohen apparently, get this, negotiated a $10 million deal just before his office was raided by the feds this year to help a real estate mogul get public money to build some nuclear power plants. Wall Street Journal breaking news tonight that Franklin Haney, who donated, by the way, $1 million to Trump's inauguration committee, just because, has club membership at Mar-a-Lago because he likes playing there, I guess, and reportedly boasted about his dinners with President Trump last year, also, according to the Wall Street Journal, agreed to pay $10 million to the president's then personal attorney, Michael Cohen, if he successfully helped obtain funding for a nuclear power project, including, this is my favorite part, a $5 billion loan from the U.S. government, according to people familiar with the matter. Joining me now is one of Wall Street Journal reporters who broke that story tonight, Michael Rothfeld. Wow! There's a lot going on here. One thing that strikes me is, this says to me, I thought we knew all the gigs, the Michael Cohen influence side gigs, but I guess we didn't.
No, we didn't know all of them, and there may yet be more. This is one that we had reported before that Cohen had arranged a meeting for Haney with the Qataris to try to get an investment for this nuclear power plant he's trying to open in Alabama, but we didn't know exactly the terms of the agreement, so today we reported that, as you said, Cohen was promised $10 million if he could help get funding for this power plant, including this $5 billion loan, and just, an astounding number, on both counts, from the Department of Energy.
So there's a few things here that I think are striking, and I should take time to read what I think is kind of a denial from Haney's attorney. It says, neither Mr. Haney nor Nuclear Development LLC ever entered into a contract with Michael Cohen or his affiliate for lobbying services related to the Belafonte project. That's the project. We should note that that's a specific technical meaning, right? You got to register to be a lobbyist.
Right.
You could enter into a consulting contract.
Right, and that's most likely what this contract says is consulting or strategic advice, except that we have reported that federal prosecutors in New York are looking at whether Michael Cohen engaged in illegal lobbying. They've contacted some of his other consulting clients, such as AT&T and Novartis, to talk to them about the deals they had with Cohen. And we reported today that Cohen, in fact, had called the Energy Department, several people there, to ask about this nuclear power project and to see if the process could be speeded up. So
you can't do that.
Well, I'm not a prosecutor, but that is...
You can't do that. I mean, you can... Look, there's a whole universe of people in Washington who consult and don't lobby.
Right.
But there's certain lines, like, to get away with the I'm a consultant, not a lobbyist, like calling up the Energy Department puts you in a tough spot when you have to explain that behavior.
Yeah, that could be a problem, potentially.
There's also, am I wrong that it's a crazy amount of money?
It's a lot of money, $10 million. And we spoke to a number of experts who said both that success fees are very unusual, while legally it's not certain that it's illegal, but
gray area.
It's a gray area, and $10 million is unheard of, is what we reported.
Unheard of. $10 million unheard of, and success fees.
Any government action, $10 million.
The success fees just leapt out to me as someone who used to be a reporter in Washington and did a lot of reporting on influence. I'd never heard of a success fee.
Right.
Because, it's one thing if, there's a continuum here, right? But it's one thing if you say, I'm paying you to go help me work over these people. But if you say, I'm going to give you the money if you're successful, it at least looks a lot more like a bribe.
Yeah, the problem is it lends itself to corruption. And in the old days, courts said, that should not happen. But now that lobbying is much more entrenched, it's, as you said, more of a gray area.
It's also fascinating because there's this reporting about, he keeps intersecting with the Qataris, right? There's this reporting back that during the transition, he's hitting up the Qataris being like, hey, hook me up, I'll shepherd some money, we'll go 50-50 on some projects, and the Qataris are a little freaked out.
Right.
But he got a meeting with the Qataris again.
Yeah, Cohen was very successful in selling himself to a lot of people. We had reported earlier this year, he said, look, I'm the guy, fire all your other people, I'm the guy with the closest relationship to the president, so hire me. But in fact, it seems he produced very little for any of his clients.
Last question. We think there was a monthly retainer along with the success fee, right? He's not doing it for free on contingency.
Right. Yes, we reported that the contract has we don't know the amount of that, but some of his retainers were in, $50,000 a month range.
Buy a lot of suits with that money. Michael Rothfeld, great reporting. Thanks for being here tonight. Next, a major blow to the defense of Paul Manafort today, and why the judge doesn't want to hear any more about Manafort's taste in suits. Speaking of that story next.
With the new Chase Business Unlimited card, I get unlimited 1.5% cash back. It's so simple, I don't even have to think about it. So I think about mouthfeel.
I don't think about the in-card. I think about nitrogen ice cream in supermarkets all over the world.
I think about the details. Fine. I obsess over the details.
Think about every part of your business except the one part that works without a thought, your Ink card. Introducing Chase Ink Business Unlimited with unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase. Chase for business. Make more of what's yours.
Candace Miller tackles a hairy issue, fostering dogs. But the powerful 2-in-1 Bissell Pet Hair Eraser Liftoff goes just about anywhere with our exclusive tangle-free technology. Bye-bye, mess.
Angie's List has collected millions of verified reviews of local home service providers, and now they're free for everyone to read. Angie's List makes it easy for you to find top-quality service providers in your area for any type of home project. Search for a great pro in your area, or let Angie's List instantly match you to a few who can do the job. To get the most reviews from real customers, all for free, go to angieslist.com today.
Booking a flight at the last minute doesn't have to be expensive. Just go to Priceline. It's the best place to book a flight a few days before my trip and still save up to 40%. Just tap and go. For the best savings on flights, go to Priceline.
Your brain is an amazing thing, but as you get older, it naturally begins to change, causing a lack of sharpness or even trouble with recall. Thankfully, the breakthrough in Prevagen helps your brain and actually improves memory. The secret is an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life. From up here, we may seem insignificant. The choices we make, inconsequential. But the truth is different. For when it comes to our life, our health, every choice we make matters.
Oh, look. There's a mattress sale. We should go.
Don't do it.
Larry?
From Sit and Sleep? Yep. It's Sit and Sleep's cool summer sale. Get the sweetest deals of the summer. Save up to $1,000 off luxury queen-size mattresses, plus interest-free financing for a cool 24 months. And introducing XL by King Coil, made for those who are big and tall and provides comfort for all. Sit and Sleep will beat anyone's advertised price, or your mattress is free.
Night, Larry.
Night-night.
Stream the premiere episode on demand.
In day 3 of the trial of Trump's former campaign manager Paul Manafort, the prosecution went straight at the central theory of the Manafort defense team, at least laid out in their opening arguments, that Manafort was basically ignorant of his own finances, that he left it to others to make decisions for him, hence he's not criminally liable for his omissions and his behavior. Today, the prosecution rebutted that argument by putting Manafort's longtime bookkeeper, Heather Washkin, on the stand. And she testified that, quote, he was very detail-oriented. He approved every penny of anything that we paid for. Earlier in the day, prosecutors submitted more evidence of Manafort's lavish spending. One witness saying that at Manafort's Hamptons home there was, quote, a huge flower bed that was all white flowers with red flowers and it's shaped like an M. Well, that's nice. You know what home you're at. And of course, lots and lots of super pricey suits, though the judge would not admit all the prosecution's photos of Manafort's wildly expensive clothing, saying it could prejudice the jury, just sampling to get a taste. The other big development today is that the star witness, who then wasn't going to be the star witness, may be back to being a star witness again. I speak, of course, of Rick Gates. There was a moment of shock yesterday. One of the prosecutors said that Gates, Manafort's former business partner, who also worked for the Trump campaign, might not be called as a witness. Today, another prosecutor seemed to put that possibility to rest, saying, quote, we have every intention to call him as a witness. To go through the day's developments, I'm joined by former federal prosecutor Ellie Honig and NBC News intelligence and national security reporter Ken Delanian, who witnessed today's proceedings inside the courthouse. Ken, what'd you see today?
Well, Chris, we've been talking about Rick Gates as potentially the star witness, but I'm not sure this bookkeeper, Heather Washkin, won't turn out to be, if not the star witness, a very important witness. And she was important in the incriminating information she offered about Paul Manafort, but she's also important for those of us who are watching this trial to learn what it might mean for the larger Russia investigation, because she really painted in stark terms a picture of Paul Manafort flat broke by 2016. In fact, deeply in debt. His company lost $1.6 million, Chris, in 2016. That's the same year he joined the Trump campaign where he was working for free. And so here you have Paul Manafort, chairman of the Trump campaign, in debt, we know, to a Russian oligarch, Oleg Deripaska, close ties to another person, Konstantin Kilimnik, who's been identified by Mueller as having ties to Russian intelligence. We really need to ask ourselves, how desperate was Manafort and what was he willing to do while he was the chairman of the Trump campaign and the Russians were circling and trying to influence the election? Now, none of that's going to come up in the trial, but that was the most interesting thought that I had today while listening to this.
Because the bookkeeper says basically when Yanukovych, Viktor Yanukovych, who is his big client, who is, of course, the Russian-aligned ruler of Ukraine, who has to flee in very quickly, when that golden goose essentially goes away, that all of a sudden Manafort finds himself broke and terrified, and that's just a few months, if I'm correct, right? A few months before he joins the campaign, he's in those situations.
Well, it was a gradual descent. Yanukovych fled to Russia in 2014, so that's the spigot started to turn off. 2015 was a very bad year for Manafort and his partner. By 2016, they were having trouble paying their health insurance bills. Right. I mean, and it's not really clear why Manafort, a well-known political consultant, was unable to generate any other income. But there we are. He was in desperate straits. And there was also information that she provided that they started to defraud banks at that time by overstating, by sort of making up, essentially, income on their balance sheets in order to get loans on some of the properties that Manafort owned.
So, there's this back and forth on Gates, right? We expect him to be the star witness. The defense targets him in their opening, says this guy's a scoundrel. He double-crossed Paul Manafort. You're going to hear from him. Yesterday, a prosecutor says, well, we don't know if we're going to call him. Today, one says they are going to call him. What's going on here?
Yeah, so I've been in a similar situation, and I think the prosecution's point of view, the fact that they were considering not calling him shows that they're feeling good about how the case is coming in, and Ken hit on it. You know, the bookkeeper really gave him a big piece of the case. And the strategy, the thought behind potentially not calling him is, well, the defense has made clear they've got all guns trained on the cooperator, on Rick Gates. And if you can take that target away, they've got nowhere left to shoot. But I do agree with the strategic decision to call him ultimately, and it looks like they will. And here's why. If you don't call him as the prosecutor, you mentioned him in opening. Now, the prosecution didn't quite say we will call him, but they mentioned him. The defense opened entirely on Rick Gates. If you don't call him, here's what the defense is going to say to the jury in closing. He's their witness. They have the ability to call him. They told you about him, and they're hiding him. Right. What are they hiding? And that's reasonable doubt. That can be a pretty powerful jury argument. So I think it's the right thing. Put him out there. He's very well supported, and let him do his thing.
So the other part of this, Ken, is you got the bookkeeper. She says he's very detail oriented. I didn't know about the foreign bank account. So like whatever he's doing with that, that's his deal. Did they cross her? What's defense strategy been here like?
Well, there was a little ambiguity, particularly in the fraud that she talked about, because Gates was involved in that part of it. Gates was in communication with her, and you could sort of get a hint of where the defense is going. To the extent that Gates participated in this bank fraud, which it appears that he did, they're going to try to pin it all on him. But there's been so much evidence at this trial that Paul Manafort was very involved in all these financial transactions, including money from overseas to purchase luxury goods, Chris.
Okay, one more thing about the judge in this trial. He really seems like a character. I mean, he's like really cracking the whip. Two things. He's been obsessed with speed. He keeps saying faster, faster, faster. He gave the assignment to the prosecutor to go home tonight and think about how to speed up your case. And he's been very sort of guarding against what he views as prejudicial introduction of evidence of the lavishness of Paul Manafort's lifestyle. What's that about?
Yeah, he sounds like a tough judge. I've been in front of judges like that. The speed thing is really the prosecutor's friend. When you're a prosecuting case, you want to get that, you want to hit it and quit it. If the case drags on and on and on, you're going to lose the jury. They're going to blame you. They're going to start missing birthdays. Right. Get in and get out. So I think he's doing them a favor there. It's stressful, but I think he's doing them a favor. On the lavish spending. So obviously it's an important piece of the prosecution's case on a couple different levels. You know, it's inflammatory, right? You want to appeal not just to a jury's intellect, but to the gut. Right. And you see this guy who's wearing a python. Right. Is it python? Some ostrich. Well, yeah, ostrich, python, all the...
Both. I'm sorry, yes. Yeah. Thank you, Ken.
All this bizarre...
Fact check, both.
But if that's all you knew about the guy, you hate him, right? So But the judge doesn't want that to go overboard. And,
right.
and it's also, he's, again, I think doing the prosecution a favor. If you go overboard on that, the jury's going to think they're just trying to make us hate this guy because he's rich and he's got weird taste. But it's also relevant to what Ken talked about. The turning point in the case here is when Yanukovych loses and the money dries up, right? And now Manafort's got this absurdly lavish lifestyle that he's got to pay for, and that's where the bank fraud comes
Nothing worse than having, $250,000 in yearly landscaping fees that you got to find a way to pay for when you're oligarch. Well, when you're, sugar daddy. Your sugar daddy strongman is forced to flee basically in the middle of the night. Ellie Honig and Ken Delaney, thank you both. Still ahead, the White House leaves no room for ambiguity. The president does believe the press is the enemy of the people, his phrase. We will play you that stunning moment ahead. Plus, Ryan Zinke, just a man with a dream, of brewing his own beer. That's tonight's Thing 1, Thing 2, next.
Now that's a home theater, Tom. You're my #1 guy. Thanks, boss. Now look out!
Hello, the Hartford.
Hi, we've just destroyed something really expensive in my customer's home. Am I covered?
Yes, don't worry. You chose the right small business insurance.
When the unexpected strikes, the Hartford strikes back. It's why over 1 million small businesses and their agents trust the Hartford.
Thank you.
Introducing new Smart Mouth Premium Zinc Ion Toothpaste.
It is just a different kind of clean feel. There's no gritty, everything feels smooth in there, and it really lasts.
Find Smart Mouth Toothpaste right next to Smart Mouth Mouthwash at Walgreens and Walmart.
On the beautiful island of St. Lucia, only at Sandals can you stay at one resort and play around at all three. Play around wherever you want. Play around as often as you like. Dine around at 23 gourmet restaurants. Enjoy unlimited rounds on us. Why, you can even sleep in the round. Sandals Resorts in St. Lucia. Get 3 vacations for the price of 1. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
I'm all about my bed.
This mattress is dangerously comfortable.
When I get in, I literally say, ah.
Introducing the Lisa mattress. A better place to sleep.
This bed hugs my body.
I'm now a morning person. The Lisa mattress is designed to provide strong support, relieve pressure, and optimize airflow to keep you cool.
Hello, bed of my dreams.
Order online. We'll build it, box it, and ship it to your door for you to enjoy. Sleep on it for up to 100 nights and love it, or you'll get a full refund. Returns are free and easy.
I love my Lisa.
Today is gonna be great.
Read our reviews, then try the Lisa mattress in your own home. Order now and get $150 off. And free shipping too. Go to buylisa.com today. You need this bed.
Hey renovators, time to dream bigger.
Wayfair, you're my new secret weapon. You got what I need for my renovation. I love all these options, so much to choose from. Bedrooms and basements, even my kitchen, your service is sweet. And my job is complete. Wayfair, here I am.
Start your renovation at wayfair.com. Ancestry DNA makes over 10 million new family connections every day. That's more ways to discover new relatives, people who share your DNA, and maybe a whole lot more. Order your kit at ancestrydna.com.
A very busy news day.
Today's high-stakes confrontation.
Let's go live to the border where our colleagues... Exclusive video.
The country's top intelligence officials testifying.
NBC News gets an exclusive look inside.
Live here at the nation's capital.
There's now an open investigation. Blockbuster new reporting today on this...
This is the deadliest shooting. The Supreme Court upheld the revised version.
Well, this new report comes amid a staggering amount of news.
Breaking news tonight exclusively here
NBC News was first out with this scoop
today. It's been an extraordinary night watching this develop. So, a lot to talk about.
Thing 1 tonight, among the Trump cabinet secretaries that have not resigned in disgrace, Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke as perhaps the most scandal-plagued member left standing. But something you may not know about him is he's a big fan of beer. In fact, Ryan Zinke has a beer dream. For years, Ryan Zinke has been trying, unsuccessfully, to get a microbrewery built in his hometown of Whitefish, Montana. Zinke, a former Navy SEAL, first tried way back in 2012 to get approval to turn a piece of residential property he owns into a brewery he wanted to call the Double Tap. That's a SEAL Team Kill a Guy reference. Unfortunately, the Whitefish city government turned him down. But Zinke didn't give up. In fact, he joined a local committee the next year, hoping to change local zoning laws to make them more hospitable to a business like his proposed brewery. Once again, he failed after clashing with fellow residents about noise and traffic. Another huge letdown. What does a guy have to do to get a brewery built in Whitefish freaking Montana? Well, becoming the Secretary of the Interior certainly doesn't hurt. How Halliburton made Zinke's dream come true is thing 2 in 60 seconds.
The fact is, there are over 9,600 roads named Park in the U.S. It's America's most popular street name, but all state agents know that's where the similarity stops. If you're on Park Street in Reno, Nevada, the high winds of the Washoe Zephyr could damage your sighting. That's very different than living on Park Avenue in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where ice dams could cause water damage. But no matter what park you live on, one of 10,000 local Allstate agents knows yours. Now that you know the truth, are you in good hands?
Trust in me. You know you do. Have the faith I
Simply Safe. Home security done right.
I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler. I'm gonna follow the sun. Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler.
Transitions. Right under control.
In the Trump swamp, Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke was only overshadowed by our old friend Scott Pruitt. But Zinke's had plenty of scandals of his own. You may remember the nearly $40,000 of wildfire preparedness funds used to pay for Zinke to take a helicopter tour, or Zinke's insistence that a special secretarial flag be flown at Interior headquarters whenever he's in the building, like he's the Queen of England. The latest scandal to emerge around Zinke may be the strangest. The Interior Department's Inspector General is now investigating whether Zinke colluded to have the chairman of Halliburton, the giant energy company with lots of business before the Interior, build him the microbrewery he's always wanted in his hometown of Whitefish, Montana. See, the Secretary of the Interior, Zinke, has rolled back Obama-era rules on fracking, saving companies, especially like Halliburton, a lot of money. Politico reports there is evidence that the microbrewery that Halliburton is proposing to build is the same one as the one Zinke has planned since at least 2012. And the Whitefish city planner also tells Politico that, quote, the developers of the project told him the microbrewery was intended for Zinke. For his part, Ryan Zinke has responded to the charges with, brewery? What brewery? Quote, at this point in my life, I am more interested in sampling handcrafted beers than making them.
Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. Bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens. Brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favorite things.
Once upon a time, there was a simple box. Inside it, the most comfortable bed imaginable. Engineered by an award-winning team, on the Casper, life is but a dream.
Try it today at Casper.com.
My gums are irritated. I don't have to worry about that, do I?
Actually, you do. Harmful bacteria lurk just below the gum line.
Crest Gum Detoxify works below the gum line to neutralize harmful plaque bacteria and help reverse early gum damage. And now there's new Crest Gum and Enamel Repair. It gives you clinically proven healthier gums and helps repair and strengthen weakened enamel. Gum Detoxify and Gum and Enamel Repair. From Crest.
Gums are good. So is my checkup.
Crest. Healthy, beautiful smiles for life.
I had a husband who was my vision, but when he died, I knew I was in big trouble.
At care.com, search for lots of local caregivers who can help with meals, housekeeping, personal care, and more. It costs less than you think, and it's easy to pay. Care.com.
Alexa, tell ADT to set goodnight mode.
Turn down service. Brought to you by ADT. A smart home with 24/7 protection. Designed and installed just for you.
Shopping for a home on Wayfair is so easy. They should make a jingle. Wayfair, you make home shopping easy.
Wait, that sounds familiar.
These new tools make my shopping a breeze. I can play in my room while I'm falling asleep.
How about Wayfair, you got just what I need?
No, it's not good.
Sounds pretty good.
Discover easier home shopping at Wayfair, where it's find and unwind. Wayfair, you've got just what I need.
Candace Miller tackles a hairy issue, fostering dogs. But the powerful 2-in-1 Bissell Pet Hair Eraser Liftoff goes just about anywhere with our exclusive tangle-free technology. Bye-bye, mess.
Sarah always chooses to take the stairs, but climbing 58,070 steps a year can be hard on her feet, knees, and lower back. That's why she wears Dr. Scholl's orthotics. They're clinically proven to relieve pain and give you the comfort to move more. Dr. Scholl's, born to move.
It's the era of the rolling deadline. There used to be news cycles.
That's news. It's something that we didn't know 2 minutes ago.
I'm changing headlines. I sent it out, Colleen.
How do we know what we know?
There's a constant stream of information.
We don't know what's coming in any moment. Go.
As we come on the air tonight, we have breaking news.
The House may be in recess, the president may be freaking out about the Mueller investigation, but the Trump administration keeps chugging along on their agenda, taking a sledgehammer to some of the most vital regulations that protect the country and the earth. Today, the administration announced its first big step to weaken fuel efficiency standards. Standards that are, let's be clear, a win-win for the consumer and the environment, since higher fuel efficiency standards means consumers pay less in fuel costs, and there's less carbon put in the atmosphere, and the earth is better off. So who complains about it? Well, fossil fuel companies and car companies, but even some automakers are complaining the Trump administration's plan to freeze the Obama-era fuel efficiency targets in the year 2021 goes too far. So how does the Trump administration justify something like this? How do you justify something so obviously anti-consumer? Well, you do it with absurd bad faith arguments, like this one. Better fuel efficiency makes people drive too much and leads to more deadly crashes. The kind of bad faith arguments that are easily rebutted. But of course, that's never stopped the Trump administration before. As noted, environmentalist Bill McKibben tweeted, "Gotta say, it takes a special kind of stupid to embrace gas guzzlers the same day scientists tell us America recorded the hottest month in Earth's history."
At Ace, kids are some of our favorite customers.
How far does this stray? Why would anybody want to take the ducks? How do you unglue?
There's nothing better than helping kids. That's why ACE supports Children's Miracle Network hospitals.
This Friday through Sunday only. Donate $5 to your local Children's Miracle Network hospital at your neighborhood Ace and get the 5-gallon bucket plus 20% off almost anything that fits inside.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
We can't stay here.
Why?
Flat toilet paper. I'll never get clean.
Way ahead of you.
Charmin Ultra Strong. It cleans better. It's 4 times stronger, and you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Hey, Todd. Hey, well, so I think I got to get my roof repaired. You know anybody?
Yeah, actually I might.
Great. Get me some additional quotes. Research the average price for the job in this area and book the job for 2 weeks from now. On a Wednesday. No, wait. Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday's better.
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything Home Advisor can. So to find and instantly book a top-rated home pro for free, just ask Home Advisor.
Home Advisor.
What's the horn?
What you don't see can hurt you. Today's connected world is full of threats you may not see if you just monitor your credit to help protect your identity. LifeLock sees more, like your personal information on the dark web. And now with the power of Norton, we detect threats like ransomware too, to help protect your identity and devices. Plus, if there's an identity theft problem, we'll work to fix it with our $1 Million protection package. Get new LifeLock with Norton, starting at $9.99 a month.
You wouldn't accept an incomplete job from anyone else.
Why accept it from your allergy pills? Flonase Sensimist relieves your worst symptoms, including nasal congestion, which most pills don't. It helps block 6 key inflammatory substances. Most pills block 1. Flonase Sensimist.
Sales event is on at Team Nissan. Save big on our award-winning lineup, like a brand new Nissan Altima.
Oh, espectacular.
Just $17,988. Or save up to $12,000 off a Titan truck. Or get 0% financing up to 72 months. Rush to Team Nissan, your #1 volume dealer in the Tri-County. For America's best now. In the Oxnard Auto Center or on the web at teamnissandirect.com.
Good on you, g'day. I'm the Kangaroo. And this is Walkabout Australia, where you'll meet your new best mates. G'day, Olivia. You'll come face to face with your fears, so you can spread your wings and fly. I meant that metaphorically. So join us at Walkabout Australia, where all paths lead to happiness.
Coca-Cola is proud to be the official beverage sponsor of the zoo and safari park.
At a Trump rally in Tampa, Florida on Tuesday night, the president's supporters swore and made obscene gestures at the press. Video of a reporter getting heckled was tweeted by the president's son with the hashtag truth and then retweeted by Trump himself. Now, Trump has referred to the press as, quote, as the opposition party, fake news, and the enemy of the people. Today, it became the official position of the White House that the press, those of us responsible for making sense of a complicated world whose job it is to inform and guide society for the better, is actually your enemy, an enemy of the people. And that's because when given the opportunity to say that wasn't the case, Sarah Huckabee Sanders very pointedly chose not to.
For the sake of this room, the people who are in this room, this democracy, this country, all the people around the world are watching what you're saying, Sarah. And the White House for the United States of America, the President of the United States should not refer to us as the enemy of the people. His own daughter acknowledges that, and all I'm asking you to do, Sarah, is to acknowledge that right now and right here.
I appreciate your passion. I share it. I've addressed this question. I've addressed my personal feelings. I'm here to speak on behalf of the president. He's made his comments clear.
I'm joined now by Betsy Woodruff, reporter of the Daily Beast, and Bob Garfield, co-host of WMIC's On the Media. Bob, what do you think of what has happened the last few days on this score?
Well, I think it's obviously disgraceful. It's perverse. It's a lie. It's incitement. It is a whole mess of ugly things, and I think as far as Sarah Huckabee Sanders is concerned, not all that important. She, what do you expect her to say? She has been a mouthpiece for Donald Trump, and I would say she's an apologist for him, but she never apologizes. Her job is to marginally make his outrages seem less outrageous. She's, as it turns out, very bad at that as well. But kind of duh, of course she said that. Or more to the point, of course she refused to walk back his hideous allegation.
He made some clarifying tweet, which is not even sort of worth getting into, about how he only means the fake news. But what struck me, Betsy, is that there's a trap here I always feel worried of getting pulled into, which is this sort of desire on the part of the White House to kind of make the press into the opposition. It calls it the opposition party. It wants to fight with the press. It is energizing for the people that come to the rallies and throw up their middle finger and scream at the press and then ask for selfies afterwards. It's very bizarre psychology. But there's also something really nasty here happening. I mean, this is from the Committee to Protect Journalists. 21 journalists in 6 countries jailed on charges related to fake news in 2017. There are consequences to this.
Yeah, there are consequences, and it's not that he's setting up the press as an opposing party. Enemy of the people is not an opposing party. No, he is right about one thing. There is an enemy of the people. There is an enemy within, a fifth column, that is an enemy of truth and of honesty and of civility and of respect and of law and order. And it is the President of the United States. And what he is doing is so beyond the pale and un-American that what his press spokesman has to say is more or less beside the point.
Betsy, what do you think?
It strikes me that there's sort of a remarkable irony when it comes to the way that this White House talks about the media, and that is that there's never been a president who's simultaneously so bitter and angry and vitriolic towards the press, but at the same time so dependent on it and so engrossed in every minute of media coverage of his presidency. And Trump has been like this going back for decades. This is not something new in his character. When he was a real estate developer in New York, he was obsessed with the way that his business was covered. He was a voracious consumer of tabloid journalism, calling up reporters, complaining and badgering with them to write stories about him, to get him in the paper, to get him on TV. He was very much just consumed with media coverage of himself. And now we're seeing that sort of play out in his presidency as the decisions that he makes are infinitely more consequential than any decision he made as a real estate developer or as a reality TV star. And he's facing a press corps that's significantly more, I might get in trouble for saying this, but significantly more sophisticated than the New York City tabloid press corps. Right. He's dealing with some of the most elite journalists in the world who are writing about his behavior every day. And yeah, it gets under his skin and it bothers him. And I think the challenge for reporters is making sure that we don't become this story and that we don't sort of become participants in this fight that he wants to create.
Yeah, what do you think? That dynamic is one that I sort of wrestle with too. I mean, I don't care what the president thinks about me or what he thinks about reporters generally. People don't like reporters. It happens all the time. There is something, I mean, enemy of the people is like a Stalinist phrase, like straight up. It is the kind of thing that leaders in countries that, throw people in prison for reporting the news say. I mean, it's gross language. And Bob, what do you think about this dynamic between sort of, adequately responding to how serious and ugly the language is and not being pulled into a kind of like professional wrestling match with the president in which you're both in the sort of same cage?
Well, it's a question that I personally have to face every day in my role as a critic of media and a commentator on politics. But I must say I've made my decision. Yes, there is a risk of creating a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy by attacking the President of the United States and creating exactly the confrontation that he is baiting us to be in. On the other hand, this is a kind of historic evil, and it is such an attack on the Constitution, on the society, on our way of life, on our history, on our founding principles, on our core values, and of truth itself, that I would rather fall into the trap of taking on the president than to be silent in the face of this grotesque situation. The press is not the enemy of the people. He is trying to divide America. This is as demagogic as it comes, and it's really dangerous, and in time there will be blood on his hands.
There's also part of this too, Betsy, which strikes me. There's both personal pique, to your point. There's sort of this demagoguery, right? His fans like it. There's also part of this which is just he doesn't. It's like when cult leaders cut people off from their families, right? There's a thing happening here which is don't trust any information you don't get from me or from people I approve. Here's what he said at the VFW, which I thought was sort of an amazing moment, when he's telling people what to believe and what not to believe. Take a listen.
Just stick with us. Don't believe the crap you see from these people, the fake news. And just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
I mean, what an amazing quote. What you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening. And Betsy, that strikes me as, that's very intentional and very tactical. That's not a fit of pique. It strikes me that he really is invested in making sure that people do not trust a huge spectrum of sources about what he is up to.
Right. It's not a fluke. Without question, it's part of a strategy. A piece of this that's important to remember is that Trump is not an aberration when it comes to the way conservatives and people on the right talk about the mainstream media. Going back for decades now, conservatives have been saying, don't trust the liberal media. Sarah Palin made it a watchword. There were buttons at rallies in the 90s saying, don't believe the lying New York Times. This is something Republicans have been pushing for decades and decades. It's been sort of a key part of the way that the Republican Party has messaged itself, is saying, don't believe what mainstream media outlets say about us. Rather, trust only conservative media, trust only Republican politicians. The difference, of course, is that Trump takes this message and weaponizes it and talks about it in a way that is extremely blunt, extremely candid. I guess maybe you have to give him credit for the level of honesty that he's showing here, and that he's saying what many other Republicans for decades had been thinking. He's saying what many other Republicans had wanted to be able to say, and he's sort of turning it up to 11, if you will. But this strain of thought is something that the Republican base has been primed for going back for quite some time now.
They are enjoying this particular moment. Betsy Woodruff and Bob Garfield, thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Before we wrap up, I want to remind you to check out our new podcast, Why Is This Happening? If you haven't started yet, folks have told us our two most recent episodes go really well together. Last week's interview with Giorgio Angelini about housing discrimination and segregation, and then this week's episode with Nicole Hannah-Jones about segregation in schools. Download them wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts. Tell us what you think using our hashtag WithPod. That is all in for this evening. The Rachel Maddow Show starts right now with Ari Melber in for Rachel. Good evening, Ari.
Good evening, Chris. One more thing we should tell people, they should also, if they think it's warranted, give your podcast 5 stars on Apple.
Great point. I was too shy to say that, but I agree with you. They should do.
Or it could be, it's like an overrating. It could be less than 5. It's everyone's personal decision. I would give 5, and people should vote on it because it's a podcast with a lot of interesting stories.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chris. And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. I am Ari Melber, in for Rachel, who has the night off. Now, we're reporting several big stories right now, including a financial turning point in the trial of Paul Manafort. Today is the day Mueller's prosecutors brought out Manafort's own bookkeeper, who told the jury he kept his foreign bank accounts secret from her. Well, that could be crucial to the case because it goes towards the criminal intent prosecutors allege that Manafort had throughout these tricky transactions. Now, we have legal experts who were there inside the courtroom to explain tonight. There's also a breaking news story about how an alleged Russian spy burrowed inside the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. So we have both of those developing stories tonight. But we begin with some new flares that are coming from Donald Trump's own national security aides about the risks that continue to be posed from President Trump's one-on-one meeting with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. Now, that was just 3 weeks ago. And according to experts across the spectrum, it marked a low point in a presidency with many low points that relate to Russia. Now, experts inside Trump's own administration also say this is a problem. Indeed, it was Trump's own intelligence chief who took this extraordinary step of publicly noting that Trump was hiding what happened in the meeting from him. That was an admission that upset the White House. It was made under questioning by NBC's Andrea Mitchell at a security conference.
In Helsinki, the president was alone with Vladimir Putin for 2 hours, more than 2 hours, with only translators. Basically, how do you know what happened? You were on the dark side of the moon. How do you have any idea what happened in that meeting?
Well, you're right. I don't know what happened in that meeting. If you had asked me how that ought to be conducted, I would have suggested a different way. But that's not my role. It's not my job. So it is what it is.
Is there a risk that Vladimir Putin could have recorded it?
That risk is always there.
People who run intelligence agencies do have all sorts of legit ways to duck those questions. They can say they won't discuss private deliberations with the president. They can say they won't discuss classified information, and certainly part of that meeting would be classified. But note that instead, Coates sent a signal that whatever went down, he was out of the loop. And if what went down was bad or even nefarious, he's on the record that he was out of the loop. Now, perhaps he also hoped to nudge his boss towards bringing him into the loop. It is hard to run the intelligence agency's quest for information around the whole world if you can't get basic info from down the hall. But here's what's new tonight. We are learning officially that Coates still doesn't know what went down, which makes the history even more concerning, since what we do know is that Trump partially walked back his support for Putin in Helsinki, but then he canceled a lot of that out by saying that Russian election interference didn't happen. Of course, that's still Putin's position. Then the bureaucrats got in on the action. You remember they had an actual National Security Council meeting on election security, which would be a good thing, but reporters noted that entire summit was less than an hour and didn't have any public follow-through or policy announcements, and that matches reporting that the Trump administration has no central strategy for election security and no one's in charge. And while we're running through the facts tonight, note that another Trump appointee flagged how they don't have a key person, quote, minding the store on cybersecurity because the Trump administration eliminated the job of cybersecurity coordinator. So that's a lot of facts. That is the current policy baseline. Experts noting the Trump approach here looks more like maybe cyber lackadaisical than cyber secure. That is the framework for what happened today. A list of intelligence VIPs marching into the White House briefing room, and you can see it right there. They were rolling deep. You see the leaders of Intel, NSA, FBI, Homeland Security announcing that contrary to what their boss says, the recent reports in the news of Russian midterm meddling are true, that Russian interference in U.S. politics continues right now, and they say this administration is working to protect the midterms, and their boss does care about it. Now, if there is a silver here to that group of people you saw, and we're going to play some of what they said, the silver lining is these intelligence professionals are trying to show a united front and correct their own president, while also trying not to enrage him as he certainly watched their televised performance. But as Jerry Garcia pointed out long ago, every silver lining has a touch of gray, and that came as reporters asked the logical question about the contradiction between the message in that room and Trump's message in Helsinki.
Let me take you back, if I could, to Helsinki. The president seemed to indicate that he may believe Vladimir Putin when he says he didn't have any influence in the 2016 election. What is your belief about the Russian government involvement in meddling in 2016?
Well, in relationship to the 2016 election, of course, none of us were in office at that particular time, but both the president, the vice president, I think everyone on this stage has acknowledged the fact that the ICA was a correct assessment of what happened in 2016. Our focus here today is simply to tell the American people we acknowledge the threat. It is real. It is continuing, and we're doing everything we can to have a legitimate election that the American people can have trust in.
So that was the answer. That's the tension on the intelligence. Then there's a separate tension about how do you investigate, indict, and punish the people identified by that very intelligence for attacking American democracy. We all know now there's a busy special counsel operation that Trump has denigrated and at times lied about. So a question on that was posed to the FBI director, who, let's of course not forget, has this job because his predecessor was fired because of the same Russia probe, and that firing is now part of the obstruction inquiry.
I have a question for Director Wray. Thank you. The special counsel, Robert Mueller, has indicted more than 20 Russian officials based on work by the FBI for meddling in the 2016 election. Now, the president has tweeted that investigation by the special counsel is a hoax and should be shut down. I know you've said that you don't believe it is a hoax, but why would the American people believe what you're saying about the FBI when the president says that the investigation by the special counsel is a hoax, and when the press secretary yesterday said that there was a lot of corruption within the FBI? Do you have any response to those statements coming from the White House?
Well, I can assure the American people that the men and women of the FBI, starting from the director all the way on down, are going to follow our oaths and do our jobs.
Strong question. The answer is up in the air. That's a statement that could mean something. That oath that he references is to the Constitution, not the president. And in our history, there are certainly officials who took their oaths to mean that they had to stand up to criminal conduct when discovered by their peers or superiors. But let's be clear, Director Wray's statement also could mean nothing because it's leaning on a cliche rather than stating unequivocally today that the FBI director still has Mueller's back, has his own agents back, and isn't going to change his actions or his words just because the president down the hall keeps running down the probe. Now, there's one more insight we think we can probably glean from today's events, and it came also from Intel Chief Dan Coats, the one who chose to tell everyone before that Trump was hiding the Putin meetings' contents from him, which, again, isn't something he has to put on blast in front of the nation. But he did it again today, putting on the record that this was not an issue of timing or delay or sitting down with his boss. It's been 3 weeks, and your nation's top intelligence officials still doesn't know what happened in Helsinki.
In the run-up to the Helsinki summit, U.S. officials, ambassadors to NATO, ambassadors to Russia, said that the president would raise the issue of malign activity with President Putin. But he didn't discuss that, at least at the press conference. You're saying today that the president has directed you to make the issue of election meddling a priority. How do you explain the disconnect between what you are saying, his advisors, and what the president has said about this issue?
I'm not in a position to either understand fully or talk about what happened at Helsinki.
He's not in a position, meaning he still doesn't know. There's an old Brooklyn saying about that moment of insight that hits you when you learn a truth. If you don't know, now you know. Well, under Trump, Dan Coats has turned that upside down, telling everyone he didn't know, and he still doesn't. He is the one person in charge of our U.S. national security secrets. If he still doesn't know, that sounds like a problem for all of us. We begin tonight with Ken Delaney, an intelligence and national security reporter for NBC News that has been a part of a great deal of reporting and some scoops on this subject. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Can you start?
Thank you, Ari. Good to be here. When you look at that united front, what do you see as the positive and what do you see as problematic that was clearly left unsaid?
That was such a fascinating mixture of truth and fiction, of cynicism and earnestness right before us at that news conference. The fiction and the cynicism was National Security Advisor John Bolton coming out and trying to suggest that from the moment Donald Trump took office, he has had a strong and forceful policy to counter foreign election intervention and Russian meddling. That's just false. We've reported that it's false. Anyone who has a Twitter feed or who reads Donald Trump on Twitter knows that that's not true. What he's done is undermine at every turn the conclusion of the intelligence community that Russia interfered. Even tonight, hours after this event, Donald Trump gave a speech in Wilkes-Barre, and he again referred to the Russia hoax. He said that his relationship with Putin could be good, but it's hindered by the Russian hoax. So that part of it was ridiculous. But you know, Chris Wray, Paul Nakasone, who's the head of the National Security Agency, and Dan Coats, I really believe do have an interest in trying to do something, and they did want to communicate to the American people that the government does recognize that this is a problem. They're trying to flag that the Russians are still out there intervening, and there are some things that they are doing about it. And the most interesting thing that I heard was Paul Nakasone, who's a general and who commands Cyber Command, which is, you know, the nation's cyber war force, said that he was prepared to go after foreign meddlers in our election. And he seemed to suggest that he had presidential authorization to do that. I think that's actually up in the air. We need to pin that down because he actually can't use the vast cyber arsenal at his disposal unless Donald Trump allows him to do that. But that was the biggest news I thought that came out of what many of those people said. Other things that they said we already knew. Yes, the Russians continue to meddle in our politics. Yes, DHS is reaching out to the states to try to shore up cybersecurity. Yes, the FBI has a foreign influence task force and they are trying to step up their efforts. And no, there is no presidential leadership. The president wasn't there. There's no central unifying force that knits this
Let's dig into that point you raise because it's common to say this is better than nothing. And you hear that a lot in Washington where a lot of times nothing is what's going on. That's a low bar for the Trump administration. So while better than nothing, as you say, without the president there, doesn't it still look like the cybersecurity plan is a sort of a headless body where these various agency folks do what they can, but we all know and see that the head of the government is undercutting them before and after?
Yes, and the biggest evidence of that is that they're having this news conference 100 days before the midterms. It's about a year and a half too late because none of this behavior by the Russians stopped at all after the 2016 election, particularly the intervention on Facebook and Twitter, the attempt to sort of divide Americans by creating false personas and stirring up trouble. That's been going on, and Dan Coats gave a speech a couple of weeks ago where he said the system is blinking red. And so, yes, you're absolutely right, because we can shore up our cyber defenses and we can do a lot of different things to try to defend. But the Russian intelligence hackers are always going to get in some fashion. And the way that you stop them is to deter them, to make them pay a price. And the only person that can do that is Donald Trump. Those other people at that news conference can't do that.
Just briefly to that final point, because you've reported on this, one of the issues with the Obama administration and the perils that are posed, even if someone tries to take it seriously, was, quote, Obama's approach, the Washington Post noted, seemed reducible to the imperative, don't make things worse. Obama and his advisors concerned any pre-election response could provoke an escalation from Putin. Putting aside the Trump piece of this, what is the problem for the U.S. that, as you've put it, lives in a glass house when it comes to escalating a global war?
Yep, that was a reasonable concern by Barack Obama because we are the most vulnerable of any society. We are the most internet connected, and we are extremely vulnerable to Russian cyber attack, and they are in our networks, including our critical infrastructure. But, most intelligence officials and experts that I talk to feel like, what else can we do? There has to be a response to this. We are wide open right now to an attack on our democracy, and the Russians have not been deterred in the least, and there's got to be something that we can do to deter them.
Right. NBC's Ken Delaney, and thank you so much all over this story. As we turn to our next guest, I want to look at March of last year. This was just after the 2016 election. The Senate Intel Committee was looking at all these issues, and they heard testimony from a former FBI special agent, Clint Watts, and he said something that's echoed in people's heads ever since.
This is not new for the Russians. They've done this for a long time across Europe, but it was much more engaging this time in our election. Why now? Mr. Watts?
I think this answer is very simple and is what no one is really saying in this room, which is part of the reason active measures have worked in this U.S. election is because the commander-in-chief has used Russian active measures at time against his opponents. On 11 October, President Trump stood on a stage and cited what appears to be a fake news story from Sputnik News that disappeared from the internet. He denies the intel from the United States about Russia. He claimed that the election could be rigged. That was the #1 theme pushed by RT, Sputnik News, white outlets, all the way up until the election.
As we look at another election, I want to bring in Clint Watts, former FBI special agent. He's the author of Messing with the Enemy, Surviving in a Social Media World of Hackers, Terrorists, Russians, and Fake News. I imagine that as a person involved in law enforcement, you don't get any great personal pleasure or ego from being early and right about something that's such a massive problem. But the way you put it there in a serious setting to Congress that early on was far ahead of where people were comfortable stating the problem. That you said these Russian active measures were put in place basically more effectively because of the way Donald Trump behaved. How does that context apply to what we saw there in the briefing room today?
Yeah, thanks, Harvey. It's a happy, sad moment, right? That's a briefing that should have happened in February 2017. President Trump was briefed about this before the inauguration, we know now, and yet there was no response. And the person that should have been leading that press conference today is the commander-in-chief of this country. It is his job to defend all Americans against enemies, foreign and domestic. And particularly when they come together, he should be trying to ensure the integrity of our electoral process and our democratic institutions. So what was fascinating today was essentially the leaders of these institutions, many of whom have been battered essentially by their boss, are now moving around him to really serve the American people. I thought Director Wray's comments were right on target, basically, but he said, I am in charge of my organization and this is what we are going to do. The same with the NSA director. He essentially said, I'm willing to strike back against Russia, and I might do that. It almost seemed independent. It is, like Ken said, it is shocking that we're talking about offensive cyber operations, because ultimately this should be led by a task force, headed by the commander-in-chief. It should come from the national security staff, and it should be an integrated strategy. What if we launch that offensive cyber attack, but then we receive a counterattack from Russia or another adversary in cyberspace that hits the financial sector or turns off the lights on one of our cities? This requires coordination. And so while I'm happy to see these advances being made, and I'm sure this is just a reaction to that Helsinki summit and the fear that many Americans have legitimately about the interference in our election, I still worry that we really don't know what the right hand and the left hand are doing, right? And who is in charge of this.
And the point there is this is now. This is not litigating 2016 or seeing what Mueller finds that happened in 2016. The Helsinki is now. Whatever was secretly discussed is operative now. The midterm meddling is now. Do you have a view, given your great expertise that goes beyond what most of us have access to, of what Stan Coates is doing there and repeatedly saying he's out of the loop?
Yeah, I think he is trying to make sure that he is honest with the Congress, which is oversight over him, and with the public. And I find value in that. While I'm disappointed that his answer is what it is, at least he is telling the truth, I think, which is saying, this is my position, this is what my job is, and this is what I know. What makes me nervous is, and as we saw on that stage in Aspen at the security forum, he didn't even know that the White House would extend an invitation to Vladimir Putin to come to the United States. This is stunning for the head of our intelligence to be that out of the loop. So while I like how a lot of these leaders, these institutions are now essentially moving around the president, I'm just alarmed at where our country is, and that a year and a half later, we're just now saying we're going to do something about the attack 2 years ago.
Well, you make such an important point, and it's something Rachel's obviously been all over in her reporting, which is if the head of Intel doesn't know the decisions being made to give Putin that benefit, that honor, then obviously they're not even making a pretense of having consulted him, which means that decision is being made not based on U.S. intelligence. It's being made based on whatever, some other thing, and given the investigation, questions about whether there's anything nefarious there. Clint Watts, we really appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks, Ari.
We have a lot more to get to, including everything you need to know about day 3 of Paul Manafort's trial. Stay with us.
It's the Ford Summer Sales Event, and now is the best time to buy.
Classic campfire trout.
Say what?
Trout.
All right. You don't think I need both?
Why does he have that axe? Make summer go right with Ford, America's best-selling brand. Now get 0% financing for 72 months plus $1,000 Ford credit bonus cash on a great selection of SUVs. During the Ford Summer Sales Event, get our best offer of the season. 0% financing for 72 months plus $1,000 Ford credit bonus cash.
CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist recommended supplement for heart health. Qunol, with 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10, has the #1 cardiologist recommended form of CoQ10. Qunol, the better CoQ10.
No matter how much you clean, does your house still smell stuffy? That's because your home is filled with soft surfaces that trap odors and release them back into the room. So try Febreze Fabric Refresher. Febreze finds odors trapped in fabrics and cleans them away as it dries. Use Febreze every time you tidy up to keep your whole house smelling fresh air clean. Fabric Refresher even works for clothes you want to wear another day. Make Febreze part of your clean routine for whole home freshness.
I was like, man, this person really smells. And, you know, I'm like scooting away farther and farther. The smell kept following me. And then I realized, oh God, that's me. And the reason why this person was making weird faces at me is because I had bad breath. It was gross.
Bad breath is sulfur gas. SmartMouth eliminates and blocks smelly sulfur gas for 24 hours. That's because SmartMouth actually works. SmartMouth. Never have bad breath. Guaranteed.
Salads should look like this. Crisp leaves of lettuce, freshly made dressing. Clean food that looks this good. Delivered to your desk. Now delivering to home or office. Panera. Food as it should be.
A hotel can make or break a trip. And at Expedia, we don't think you should be rushed into booking one. That's why we created Expedia's Add-on Advantage. Now after booking your flight, you unlock discounts on select hotels, right until the day you leave. Add-on Advantage. Discounted hotel rates when you add on to your trip. Only when you book with Expedia.
We've got exciting news at North Hollywood Toyota. We've teamed up with Kelly Blue Book, and we're now your trade-in headquarters. Get an instant cash or trade-in offer based on Kelly Blue Book values right inside our dealership. Best part is, it's free.
It's great.
Get an instant Kelly Blue Book quote online today at NorthHollywoodToyota.com.
So trade in your car today and drive away in a brand new Toyota. North Hollywood Toyota. Let's go places.
Remember when you weren't supposed to sit too close to the screen? And video games were anti-social? TV was in the den? And loud music was for the basement? The future is fun, like crazy fun.
and Spectrum's fiber-powered network is ready for it. No matter what VR, 8K, 3D entertainment the world comes up with. Are you ready for what's next? Spectrum, think forward.
Wherever forces clash,
Some incoming rounds have been whistling past.
wherever leaders assert their power,
They not only stood next to each other, they stood up for each other.
wherever heroes rush to the sea, or voices shout to be heard, our journalists bring the world into focus.
Today looked like a bad day for Paul Manafort in his trial. Now, before I report any other facts, let me say in fairness, the early days in trials often look bad for the defendant because we hear one side of the case from the prosecutors, their first best arguments. And in this case, that's Mueller's laser focus on Manafort's finances, which are presented as lavish, shady, sneaky, at times even bizarre. So, even though Manafort's defense is yet to come, here is why there was so much bad news for the defendant. Manafort's bookkeeper took the stand, painting a picture of a secretive boss breaking the law. More on that in a moment. One of his closest aides, Rick Gates, will take the stand against him, we learned today. Mueller's team confirming after some back and forth they have every intention of doing it. Now, to be clear, that testimony could reverberate well beyond this trial, because for all the talk of people flipping and the intrigue about what Mike Flynn or George Papadopoulos may have told Mueller, when Gates speaks under oath in public in this trial, it'll be the first time we actually hear a Trump campaign aide legally turn on another Trump campaign aide. Now, the other development might be a little more melodramatic than pivotal, but it is also one that a lot of people are talking about. We return, of course, to the ostrich jacket. Mueller's team filing an overnight motion challenging the judge's decision yesterday to keep from the jury photos of Manafort's sartorial taste, the fancy suits, and the $15,000 ostrich jacket. Prosecution arguing evidence regarding Manafort's expenditures on goods, services, and property through wire transfers from these foreign bank accounts that he controlled to U.S. vendors is directly relevant to the elements of the offenses. Now, that is very lawyerly, and we'll show you exactly why. Judge Ellis responded, "I'm well aware the evidence is relevant, and that's why I permitted the government to introduce the amounts of money that he spent." The relevance being, okay, you can do the receipts. The judge goes on to say, what I have not permitted is to gild the lily. That is, if he spent a lot of money on fancy clothes or watches or cars, I guess you'd call them designer clothes. They're not Men's Warehouse clothes, but it wouldn't matter if he'd spent money on Men's Warehouse clothes. You want to introduce pictures of these suits that, meaning the picture aspect itself, the judge argues, quote, isn't relevant at this point and kind of besmirches the defendant. It kind of engenders some resentment against rich people generally. So that is how these lawyers get into the little details here, because they have a reason, Mueller's team, to want to have the jury see with their own eyes all that fancy spending. Some of this sounds like an episode of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, and you almost don't need the pictures because they're telling the jurors about a $10,000 karaoke system that Manafort put in his Hamptons home, which has a huge flower bed of white and red flowers shaped like an M off the driveway and a man-made pond in all of the Hamptons that was complete with a waterfall feature. Then the receipts are, of course, from the bookkeeper who we mentioned. She walked through that she dealt with Manafort's income expenses, and this notoriously high-flying, super-rich consultant was actually living a lie. He was on his way to being broke. He lied to financial institutions to get loans. He couldn't pay his own family's health bills. And the prosecution asked, did there come a time when Manafort had trouble paying his bills? She said yes. Now, here's where it all comes together. That's part of what was presented today, and that was about early 2016. Evidence showing Manafort needed money. But instead of seeking a new consulting gig or some new financial retainer, his plan was to take a demanding full-time, high-stress job as a volunteer. We all know that because he had a written pitch that leaked to Trump, which offered his campaign services for free. No paid job. The worst news for Manafort is that all of this written and testimonial evidence today suggests he was broke, and that led him to commit alleged financial crimes. But the wider question, no matter what happens in this trial, is whether Paul Manafort's plan to work for free was itself another financial lie. Did he have a plan, executed or not, to use the Trump campaign, like prosecutors allege he'd used so many others, as a witting or unwitting accomplice to new, different illegal money schemes? To be fair, that is not what's charged in this trial. But to be fair, this investigation ain't over either. We're now joined by Josh Gerstein, justice correspondent for Politico and MSNBC contributor as well, and Barbara McQuaid, a former federal prosecutor and MSNBC analyst. Barbara, your view of day 3 and what it means that the prosecutors are going to the mat on the pictures.
Yeah, I think that they want to make the case, as they said in their trial brief, that this isn't just a matter of spending money. It's spending money very lavishly, because one of the things they have to prove is that when Paul Manafort signed his income tax returns, he knew that those were false statements. He knew that the amount of income he was declaring was far less than what he had. And how do you show that? His knowledge? You show it by showing all of the different things he's spending money on. And I'm concerned that information is coming in so quickly, so fast, so much, that the jury is having a hard time keeping up. When you see those pictures, it does bring that home. And then it also helps explain his motive for the bank fraud charges, which is the cash dries up. And this is someone who loves money. And so when the cash dries up, he needs and is desperate for cash, which explains why he's motivated to engage in that bank fraud, to get the cash he needs to pay his expenses.
Josh, your views?
Well, you know, I'm reminded of an old English teacher who used to say, show, don't tell. And the problem here is that Judge Ellis is really insisting that the prosecutors only tell and very rarely show. So as a result, as Barbara's alluding to, jurors are getting almost the equivalent of a ledger of expenses, which simply may not carry as much weight as seeing the actual items. Now, the prosecutors say it's not that they're trying to make fun of Manafort or besmirch his reputation, but to emphasize that these are not business expenses. These are actually personal expenses. They could not be any other. These Oriental rugs were not going into some office. They were going into Manafort's homes. And they're just the kinds of spending that could not conceivably relate to any legitimate business expense.
Right, which goes, Barbara, to something we've seen in other cases where there's sort of an accountant's defense where people say, hey, my people were doing this, a lot of money flies around, I didn't really know. Whereas if you have enough ostrich jackets and the jurors say, I remember the ostrich jacket, wouldn't you remember it? It clears that hurdle to some degree. I wonder, Barbara, if you could also speak to the Mueller's team, the theory of the case from the Mueller team, that they want to give more than one reason why Manafort acted this way. Today in the spotlight, the reason was he was desperate, he was broke, and he made these decisions. But they've also separately made the argument by suggestion and in the written filings that he was greedy, that he was, to use a more proverbial word, scummy. Why do you think they're showing basically more than one theory of why he would allegedly commit these crimes?
Well, I think they need to establish theories for both kind of sets of counts in this case. There's a set of counts that relate to the filing of false income tax returns. And so for that part, the purpose is showing his knowledge of the income. And then there's a series of charges relating to bank fraud. And so with regard to those charges, they need to show the motive that he was running out of cash. And so that's why he was involved with this money. So there's kind of two different motives because there's two different theories for those two different sets of cases. But the legal standard under the rules of evidence is that evidence should be permissible unless it is substantially more prejudicial than it is probative. And because it is probative, because these are the things he himself bought, it's hard to argue that it's substantially more prejudicial than probative.
And Josh, what about the big question that we've teed up tonight that's come up before and come up in reporting in New York Times and your publication as well, that this was an unusual volunteer arrangement?
There's no question about that, and at a particular moment. I mean, you're talking, Ari, about why there might be different motivations. I think it's because this case spans a long period of time, from 2010 or all the way back to 2005 to 2016 and 2017, right into the heart of the Trump campaign and beyond. In 2010, Manafort seemed to be doing okay. He was bringing in a lot of money from this deal with Viktor Yanukovych and the oligarchs supporting the Party of Regents. The government says $60 million for his work in Ukraine. Even with a pretty lavish lifestyle, you can manage to spend a few years on $60 million. But it had begun to dry up in 2015 and 2016, and that's when the desperation set in. And the real question is, was that job at the top of the Trump campaign a product of this desperation? Was he just going to go through the revolving door and become another Washington lobbyist once again, like everybody else? Or was perhaps there something more nefarious at work?
Right. Barbara McQuaid and Josh Gerstein, my thanks to both of you for your expertise coming straight out of the courtroom, and we will be right back.
The fact is, there are over 9,600 roads named Park in the U.S. It's America's most popular street name, but all state agents know that's where the similarity stops. If you're on Park Street in Reno, Nevada, the high winds of the Washoe Zephyr could damage your sighting. That's very different than living on Park Avenue in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where ice dams could cause water damage. But no matter what park you live on, one of 10,000 local Allstate agents knows yours. Now that you know the truth, are you in good hands?
Get the best deals on the best selection of Woodlook waterproof floors at Lumber Liquidators Worry-Proof Flooring Sale. Get 20% off porcelain tile and 10% off vinyl plank flooring. More from 49 cents plus special financing. Get to your local Lumber Liquidators today.
If your moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's symptoms are holding you back and your current treatment hasn't worked well enough, it may be time for a change. Ask your doctor about Entyvio, the only biologic developed and approved just for UC and Crohn's. Entyvio works at the site of inflammation in the GI tract and is clinically proven to help many patients achieve both symptom relief and remission. Infusion and serious allergic reactions can happen during or after treatment. Entyvio may increase risk of infection, which can be serious. PML, a rare, serious, potentially fatal brain infection caused by a virus, may be possible. This condition has not been reported with Entyvio. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, experience frequent infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Liver problems can occur with Entyvio. If your UC or Crohn's treatment isn't working for you, ask your gastroenterologist about Entyvio. Entyvio, relief and remission within reach.
I work hard to protect this tuchus, to take care of any messy situations, and put irritation in its place. And if I can get comfortable keeping this tuchus safe and protected, you can get comfortable doing the same with yours. Preparation H, get comfortable with it.
If you use some of these moves way too often, then you might have a common condition called dry mouth, which can be brought on by many things, like medication and medical conditions. Biotine provides immediate, long-lasting relief from dry mouth symptoms. It is clinically proven to soothe and moisturize a dry mouth. Plus, it freshens breath. Biotine, immediate and long-lasting dry mouth symptom relief.
We're surrounded by infinite possibilities. It's up to us to see the choices we have and summon the courage to make them. For when it comes to our life, our health, every choice we make matters.
This is the era of digital possibility, when every connection is an opportunity to do more.
Basically, so first off, they just lost all those six, all that MVP, all that MVP.
Where every fiber-lit building, enterprise, and city we connect lays the foundation to our digital economy. Join us as we turn the promise of technology into digital progress. Together, Spectrum Enterprise.
Here's a bombshell tonight from the Guardian newspaper in the UK. A suspected Russian spy has been working undetected in the heart of the American embassy in Moscow for more than a decade. The Russian national has been hired by, guess who? The U.S. Secret Service, and was understood to have had access to the agency's internet and email systems, which gave a potential window into confidential material, including the schedules of the vice president and the president. Investigators now have established that she was having regular and unauthorized meetings with members of Russia's principal security agency. Now, numerous secret meetings with that agency, the FSB, an undercover Russian spy operating under the diplomatic umbrella of our own U.S. government, undetected for, yes, a decade. What kind of damage could have been done over all that time, and what happens next? This is a big one. Michael McFaul, former ambassador to Russia under the Obama administration, joins me. I guess we should start with, when did you first learn about this? And based on your knowledge of that embassy, obviously, where does this person fit in?
Well, I only learned about it when press reporters started poking around about it. I did not know about it when I was ambassador, although it sounds like this woman worked for me.
when I was there. I don't remember her, recall her. Obviously, this is not good news. We don't want to have people working for the FSB inside the embassy, interacting with people, having access to information. Now, there is some good news, Ari. I think it's highly unlikely that she had access to classified information. That just does not happen in the embassy for Russians, for foreign nationals working there. But because she worked for the Secret Service, as you just alluded to, she probably would have access to the schedules of people like the Vice President and President. That obviously is not good.
Walk us through where this fits on the spectrum of expected, possible, low risk, impossible. You operate an environment where Rachel and others have reported on before, where there were all kinds of explicit measures taken against you and your team there. So you obviously, this is not like working in the, say, the Canadian embassy, or I should say the U.S. Embassy to Canada, to be precise. But did it cross your mind that this was part of the risks you faced from your own staff or Russians who were hired by Secret Service and the embassy?
Absolutely, of course. And with good reason, by the way. So just one anecdote, and I need to be careful here about what I talk about and what I don't, but when I would go to meet with members of civil society, I would show up and there would be all kinds of protesters there. Sometimes as many as 50 protesters outside blocking the doorway for how I could get in there. How did they know my schedule? These were not announced meetings. So one way might be through cyber activity, but another might be through people like this individual that were working with us and somehow got access to the calendar. Remember, she didn't work close to me, right? This woman in the Secret Service, but they got to know other Russians that worked in the building. They got to know my bodyguards who are Russians. They got to know different staff members, and that's the other way that information transfer could happen.
Right.
So
now let me ask you as well about the most messed up part of this, from what I can tell, and this is probably not something, if you say you just learned about it, doesn't involve your leadership, but the report here is that the Secret Service quietly terminated this person, and there's no indication of any other measures of accountability. This comes at a time where we're talking every night about indictments of Russians and hoping to potentially get them. Maria Butina's in custody. Others could be caught by an Interpol warrant if they're traveling and face justice. Mueller didn't indict them as only an exercise. Can you shed any light on at least this preliminary report that it sounds like this person was just quietly fired?
Well, I would say two things. Three things. One, I don't know the full facts, so we'll have to learn that. Number two, we obviously could not have arrested her in the Russian on her territory, right? So that's what's different about Butina versus this individual. But three, there should have been a thorough investigation. In fact, oftentimes we would run counterintelligence on somebody like that to follow them, to understand what they're doing, to try to get greater fidelity as to how the FSB works. And remember, the FSB dedicated lots and lots of resources. I'm being vague on purpose, to following every single member of the U.S. Embassy, and first and foremost me, and they're really good at it. So just to dismiss somebody without trying to investigate and figure out what they were doing, if that holds to be true, then that, I think, was probably a mistake.
And final question then, certainly can't arrest them on sovereign territory out of the blue. But the fact that this was reportedly a mole inside the Secret Service and you'd want to get that information, they were in U.S. employees. So what about sending them on a mission abroad or to the United States and then holding them there?
Hey!
You watch a lot of spy shows, don't you? In all seriousness?
I just watch the news, man.
They're not going to kill
that's
you.
That's a very interesting idea. Should that have been done before? That's a great observation, because obviously this was an employee. If everything that's been reported is true, I want to keep saying that. I don't know the actual facts.
Vote to kick me now?
We should have taken more precautions, and obviously this person was not fulfilling their contract, as has been reported to the United States government,
they're not
and that
gonna
has
be able to kick you.
implications. And again, we just want to know
I'll just
more
down all
than
of
just
them.
kind of sweeping this under the rug
Then
and
you'll
moving
get
on.
kicked off from that.
We want to take advantages when we learn this, right? Obviously, we did have some good intelligence that we know allegedly that she was reporting to senior FSB officials. That's the mark of good intelligence, but we should have taken more appropriate measures to learn more about what happened, including, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't pretend to be one, but including, of course, were there criminal activity here that should have been investigated.
Well, Ambassador, it's an intriguing story, as you mentioned in your nuance. It's a brand new one from The Guardian, so we may yet learn a lot more. We appreciate your guidance, the expertise you have, having literally worked inside the building where these activities allegedly occurred. Michael McFall, former ambassador to Russia, thanks for spending some time with us tonight.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Up next, there is a friendly game you might want to play of Name That Town. We'll be right back.
He's gonna shoot you. He's under you. He's under you. Watch out, watch out, watch out. Let me go. Watch out.
It's emboldened.
When he comes out, he's coming up. He's giving up. He's giving up.
And destroying lives.
When Gabe got those tattoos, I just thought his life was over.
I've dedicated my life to pulling people out of hate. I know how these people think and how to help because I used to be one of them.
I didn't believe it. Again.
Ooh, baby, do you know what that's worth?
I want to believe it.
Ooh.
I'm not hearing the confidence. Okay, bold the name your price tool. Power of options based on your budget. And
ooh, make heaven a place on earth.
my angels.
Ooh, heaven is a place on earth.
Fruits and veggies are essential to your health, but it's tough to get enough of their nutrients. New Day with Nature's Medley is the only complete multivitamin with antioxidants from one total serving of fruits and veggies. Try new One a Day with Nature's Medley.
It's just not the same with back pain. Dones relieves back pain.
Wow!
Dones, we've had your back's back since way back. Now available in a cream.
Tough food, your dentures may slip and fall. New Fix-A-Dent Ultra Max Hold gives you the strongest hold ever to lock your dentures. So now you can eat tough food without worry. Fix-A-Dent and forget it.
At Wayfair.com, we think that when the big stuff ships first, it's just better.
Cover better, crunch better. Crunch better, rock better, roll better. Roll better, dream better, clean better. Yeah, better!
Oh, Wayfair has free shipping. Game changer.
Fast better, free better, everything's better when it's
Free shipping on orders over $49. Shop better at Wayfair.com.
Wayfair, you've got just what I need.
I was looking for somebody who wanted to find love.
At eHarmony, we ask you questions so that we can match you for a lasting connection.
I found my person.
I really found my true love on eHarmony.
eHarmony.com, the #1 trusted dating site. Start for free today.
I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler. I'm gonna follow the sun. Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler.
Transitions, right under control.
Really? Man, this is what I feel like when I wear regular shoes. Cramped and uncomfortable.
We can arrange a little upgrade.
Which is why I wear Skechers wide fit shoes. They have extra room throughout. They're like a luxury ride for my feet. Try Skechers wide fit shoes.
Let's do some politics. In 1 minute, we're going to bring on a hardworking political reporter on assignment in an American swing state. The reporter is in a Pennsylvania city of approximately 40,000 people. This is 20 miles sort of south-southwest of Scranton, with a hyphenated name that I'm not going to say this second because here on the show we haven't found a consensus about how to say it. Now, we do have one example. We present the great Gene Kelly.
The one and only Eugene Curran Kelly, born Pittsburgh, died in Schenectady, Wilkes-Barre.
Now, the right way to say this town might be Wilkes-Barre,
You guys, that guy's
Pennsylvania.
He
However,
is
that's
like
not what the local Chamber of Commerce
HP.
said.
One.
Welcome to the Greater Wilkes-Barre Chamber.
Yeah.
So we have Wilkes-Barre in the running. We also have Wilkes-Barre. If there are any others out there, well, take it away, Mr. Mayor.
Hello, and welcome to the virtual tour of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Maybe they're just low-key about it. Wilkes-Barre, that's the third pronunciation that we have found for this, we believe to be a great town in Pennsylvania. Wilkes-Barre, Wilkes-Barre, rar, Wilkes-Barre, if you like fruit. Any way you say it, though, that is where we're going next. Stay with us.
Payday.
It's the Ford Summer Sales Event, and now is the best time to buy.
Classic campfire trout.
Say what?
Trout. Trout.
All right. You don't think I need both?
Make summer go right with Ford, America's best-selling brand. Now get 0% financing for 72 months plus $1,000 Ford credit bonus cash on a great selection of SUVs. During the Ford Summer Sales Event, get our best offer of the season. 0% financing for 72 months plus $1,000 Ford credit bonus cash.
For every home project, HomeAdvisor finds trusted local pros. For every pro, you can read customer reviews. And for everybody's busy schedule, you can book appointments online. For every project, you have HomeAdvisor. Go to HomeAdvisor.com.
At Visiting Angels, we're all about family. So when it's time for your mom or dad to get the care they deserve, we're here to help. We'll work with you to select the right caregiver and craft a custom plan that fits your loved one's needs and gives you the peace of mind you're looking for. We know you want the very best for your loved ones. So begin your home care journey today by contacting Visiting Angels, America's choice in senior home care.
My mom's pain from moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis was intense. I wondered if she could do the stuff she does for us, which is kinda a lot. And if that pain could mean something worse.
Joint pain could mean joint damage. Enbrel helps relieve joint pain and helps stop further damage. Enbrel may lower your ability to fight infections. Serious, sometimes fatal events, including infections, tuberculosis, lymphoma, other cancers, nervous system and blood disorders, and allergic reactions have occurred. Tell your doctor if you've been someplace where fungal infections are common, or if you're prone to infections, have cuts or sores, have had hepatitis B, have been treated for heart failure, or if you have persistent fever, bruising, bleeding, or paleness. Don't start Enbrel if you have an infection like the flu.
Since Enbrel, my mom's back to being my mom.
Visit Enbrel.com and use the Joint Damage Simulator to see how joint damage could progress. Ask about Enbrel. Enbrel. FDA approved for over 18 years.
Time. It shouldn't be measured by clocks. It should be measured by how long steak and lobster is back at Outback. Backed by popular demand, steak and lobster starting at $15.99. And time is limited. So hurry in today. Outback Steakhouse. Aussie rule.
Everybody's got a smartphone, but the challenge is they don't have access to broadband at home. The Spectrum Digital Education Fund has made a huge difference for us. We focus on digital literacy. Giving people access to technology truly makes a difference in their ability to navigate their lives. Spectrum is investing in the community, both locally and nationally, and that's very important to us.
Order online. We'll build it, box it, and ship it to your door for you to enjoy. Sleep on it for up to 100 nights and love it, or you'll get a full refund. Returns are free and easy.
I love my Lisa.
Today is gonna be great.
Read our reviews, then try the Lisa mattress in your own home. Order now and get $150 off. And free shipping too. Go to buylisa.com today.
You need this bed.
It has now been a full month since NBC News first reported allegations that Republican Congressman and Trump supporter Jim Jordan ignored allegations of sexual abuse against a teen doctor. This was back when Jordan served as an assistant wrestling coach at Ohio State in the 80s and 90s. Now more than 100 men have ultimately come forward with different types of allegations of abuse by that doctor. One former wrestler telling NBC News he told Jordan about it. 6 saying they do have reason to believe Jordan knew. Another 2 said that they didn't think he did know, so there is some debate there. Now, Congressman Jordan vehemently denies knowing about this, and not only has denied those accounts, he's actually alleged that this entire story, which, to be clear in its outlines, has wide corroboration, is actually not any good faith attempt to reckon with this history, but rather a choreographed attack by the anonymous left.
I'd like to think that the reason you see the left coming after me and lies being told is because we're being effective.
The guy who's making the most noise is a guy who's got a criminal background. The other guy's been in prison for 18 months.
The way it seemed to me, it was sequenced and choreographed, and the left and everything they've done.
I think the timing is suspect from when you think about how this whole story came together.
Jim Jordan has taken this on partly by arguing that he's actually a victim of people who are only doing this for politics. Now, amid these allegations, Jordan is running for Speaker, so he would be the most powerful person in Congress, as well as second in line to the presidency after the vice president. NBC News reports that Congressman Jordan has been privately pressuring victims of the abuse to recant on aspects of their allegations. Two ex-wrestlers telling NBC the day after they made these allegations against the congressman, at least of turning a blind eye to dealing with the abuse by this doctor, that Jordan got another retired coach to reach out and pressure them into issuing statements of support for Jordan. One saying, "I will defend Jordan until I have to put my hand on a Bible and be asked to tell the truth. Then he will be on his own." An ex-wrestler telling NBC that when he refused, Jordan's allies began attacking his credibility. Another saying, "What a world we're living in when a member of Congress is digging up dirt on sex abuse victims like us." Now, the retired coach did not return calls seeking comment to explain all this on the record. Jordan's people say that he has many supporters and, quote, "Of course we encourage folks to speak the truth." Whether the new reports will change anything about Jordan's political race here in the House is open. The president and Republican leaders have not weighed in any great detail. Now, this vein of reporting about Congressman Jordan is a campaign issue in the Ohio special election. That's the race next week. There's a new ad there online asking whether the Republican candidate in that race stands with the victims or stands with Jim Jordan while he was a coach and the approach he took. I turn now to Jonathan Allen, a national political reporter for NBC News, who, as we mentioned, is out in the field looking at all of these races. What is important here to you about the way Jordan is handling this? Because on the one hand, he stands not accused of the original misconduct, and yet the way he's responded, as you have reported, has raised new questions with the very affected community, including self-identified people who say they were victims.
Right, Ari, you not only have these allegations that Jordan was aware of it, turned a blind eye, but now allegations of a cover-up. That quote you read before is devastating. I'm going to be with Jimmy until I have to put my hand on a Bible and swear under oath, at which point I'm casting him aside. This is really tough stuff, and I think the problem for Republicans right now is they're in a little bit of that Washington bubble. They seem to have forgotten what happened to them in the 2006 midterms when there was a cover-up of the Mark Foley Page scandal. Maybe a lot of them obviously weren't in Congress then, but you'd think they were politically aware. They seem to be unaware of the larger moment in American history where you've got all of these sex abuse revelations, starting back with the Penn State case and the Joe Paterno run football team, and then more recently Michigan State. This seems like an untenable thing for Jordan, particularly as a speaker candidate. As you note, one of the Democratic groups going after one of his fellow Ohioans, a Republican candidate there, asking if he'll support Jordan for Speaker. You can only imagine what Democrats will do over the next few weeks, given all the attacks on Nancy Pelosi in the past. Oh, my God, what would happen if Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker? You can imagine a series of Democratic ads on what if Jim Jordan was the Speaker of the House.
Do you think this is something that does cut across party lines out there?
Absolutely. This is one of those issues that does cut through because, unfortunately, sexual abuse has hurt so many people in our country. And even people who aren't victims of it certainly can understand it. This isn't a partisan or a political issue. It's a character issue.
Right, and it goes to not only what happened, how did it look in the moment for what someone saw, but given what has been called out in the reckoning that's been demanded, how do you deal with it now? And that seems to be part of where he's under extra scrutiny, in part because of reporting like yours. John Allen, thank you for making time for us tonight.
Thank you.
We will be right back.
At Ace, kids are some of our favorite customers.
How far does this spray? Why would anybody want to take the dust? How do you unglue?
there's nothing better than helping kids. That's why ACE supports Children's Miracle Network hospitals.
This Friday through Sunday only, donate $5 to your local Children's Miracle Network hospital at your neighborhood ACE and get the 5-gallon bucket plus 20% off almost anything that fits inside.
ACE is the place for the helpful hardware, folks.
How do you win at business? Stay at La Quinta, where we're changing with contemporary makeovers. Then use the ultimate power handshake, the upper hander with a double palm grab. Who has the upper hand now? Start winning today. Book now at lq.com.
Yo, you got TK'd, my dude.
Promote what makes your business great with Vistaprint. Whether it's a business card, a banner, or a postcard, we have the paper stocks, sizes, and design options to create marketing that's right for your business. Give it a try with 500 standard business cards starting at just $9.99 when you use code VP500 at Vistaprint.com.
In an era of online retail where everything is just a few clicks away, buying a car should be no different. That's why at Carvana, you can buy a car 100% online. We made it easy to browse, view, and buy from over 10,000 cars. You can even trade in your old car, all while binge watching your favorite TV show. Afterwards, we'll deliver your car to you. Or you can pick it up from one of our car vending machines. Either way, your car comes with a 7-day return policy. So grab a seat, relax in your comfy pants, and enjoy the new way to buy a car at Carvana.
You shouldn't be rushed into booking a hotel. With Expedia's add-on advantage, booking a flight unlocks discounts on select hotels until the day you leave for your trip. Add-on advantage, only when you book with Expedia.
There's a common thread I see every time I'm in the field.
While this is burning, you were saving other homes.
Neighbors helping neighbors and strangers alike.
This is what America's about.
Sometimes it's nice to see all the good that's out there.
Bringing folks out, we have seen it in community after community.
Good work. The biohazard container has been located.
From discovering a Russian spy to Ambassador McFall's observations about spy novels, we've had quite a show tonight. That does it for us. We will see you again tomorrow. I also mentioned you can turn into The Beat at 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. I will be joined by former Clinton campaign chair John Podesta and comedian Eddie Griffin, which we're looking forward to. But now, something else we're looking forward to. It is time for The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Good evening, Lawrence.
Good evening, Ari, and I'm glad you covered the Jim Jordan case. We haven't had a spot to squeeze it into on the show, but I certainly have been tweeting about it. And the day will come in these civil lawsuits about it where he's going to find himself under oath in a deposition at some point about this.
You make that point, and I think the corollary to Paterno, which was a cultural moment before the current Me Too era, is another where if there's an actual process and people have to tell the truth because they're under pressure, the old history comes back. And that's what's so fascinating, or as many people have pointed out, disturbing about the way he seems, at least right now, uninterested in doing any of that reckoning. So it's an important story.
Yeah, the Paterno model has to be what everyone on the Jim Jordan side of this is very, very worried about tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Well, how can Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller and his staff possibly keep up with all of the suspicious developments in the Trump relationship to Russia and Vladimir Putin and the friends of Vladimir Putin? Consider just this item from the New York Times tonight. This week, the Trump administration further eased its pressure on Rusal, Russia's largest aluminum company, less than 4 months after sanctions on it and its notorious leader were imposed, even as the White House seems willing to inflict pain on American farmers and consumers with its trade wars. Russian aluminum workers are apparently worthy of special protection. And that is special protection from Donald Trump. Rusal is controlled by Vladimir Putin's friend, Oleg Deripaska, who, as the Times points out, quote, has been investigated for money laundering and accused of threatening the lives of business rivals, illegally wiretapping a government official, and taking part in extortion and racketeering. And there are allegations that he also, quote, ordered the murder of a businessman and had links to a Russian organized crime group. During the presidential campaign, Paul Manafort was very friendly with Oleg Deripaska, or at least tried to be. He offered him private briefings about the presidential campaign. Now, if Paul Manafort is convicted in his current trial or in his next trial, he might then be willing to make a deal with Robert Mueller and tell him everything he knows about Oleg Deripaska and many other things, which could then reveal why Donald Trump gave Oleg Deripaska and his Russian aluminum company a very sweet deal this week. And that's just this week's highlight in the further mysteries of the Trump-Russia relationship. Why did Deripaska get that deal and get it this week? Was it something Vladimir Putin asked for in his one-on-one meeting with Donald Trump? Was it the kind of favor Vladimir Putin was betting he would be able to get from a President Donald Trump? And is that one of the many reasons why Vladimir Putin attacked the American election, went to war on American democracy to help Donald Trump win the presidency?
Did you want President Trump to win the election, and did you direct any of your officials to help him do that?
Да, я хотел, чтобы он выиграл. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the U.S.-Russia relationship back to normal.
How can Robert Mueller and his team possibly keep up with the suspicious activity that Donald Trump continues to engage in with Vladimir Putin and Russian businessmen? How could they possibly ask all of the right questions of Donald Trump if Donald Trump agreed to be interviewed by the special prosecutor and his team? Rudy Giuliani continued to play the public game today about the president being interviewed by the special prosecutor, claiming that they will decide whether the president will grant that interview within, quote, a week to 10 days. Rudy Giuliani is the very same person who said the entire case, whole thing, would be wrapped up within 2 weeks after he joined the Trump defense team on April 19th. Rudy Giuliani told Politico today that the Trump team wants to rule out of bounds about half of what Robert Mueller wants to discuss with the president. Quote, we don't want questioning on obstruction. They would have to concede that. So according to the Giuliani rules of the interview, Robert Mueller would not be allowed to ask President Trump what he said to James Comey about the FBI investigation of Michael Flynn. James Comey says that the president told him, I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. I hope you can let this go. Giuliani says that the only area of inquiry that the Trump team would consider allowing is how Donald Trump and his campaign interacted with Russians during the presidential campaign. And a week after reports that Trump's former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, is willing to testify that Donald Trump knew about the meeting in Trump Tower with Russians during the campaign before it occurred, NBC News is reporting today that the special prosecutor now wants to interview someone who helped arrange that meeting. NBC News reports that the special prosecutor has requested an interview with Ayman Agalarov, the Russian pop star who sent emails to Donald Trump Jr. to arrange that meeting in Trump Tower. Ayman Agalarov's American lawyer, Scott Balber, told NBC News conversations are ongoing about a potential interview and that it is, quote, unclear how this will play out, which, as of tonight, could serve as the headline for the status of everything still under investigation by the special prosecutor. Unclear how this will play out. Leading off our discussion now, Joyce Vance, former federal prosecutor. She's a professor at the University of Alabama School of Law and an MSNBC contributor. Maya Wiley, former counsel to the mayor of New York City. And Eugene Robinson, associate editor and Pulitzer Prize-winning opinion writer for the Washington Post. He's an MSNBC political analyst. And Maya, you're a former federal prosecutor also. What do you make of the Giuliani conditions for the interview?
Well, in fairness, I was in the civil division of the U.S. Attorney's Office. I will say that, unfortunately, Giuliani has become someone whose career is not going to be looked at it quite the same light as it was before this, because he really had a storied career. And what we're seeing is just this complete disintegration of what was a credible lawyer into someone who's lost all credibility. And while I've never agreed with Rudy Giuliani on many issues, including when he was mayor of New York City, I have to say I'm completely shocked about his behavior as a lawyer.
And Joyce, it seems that the Giuliani proposition, if true, and I should have prefaced all of this with, we have no idea what the truth is here. The Mueller investigation has not leaked a word, not a document, nothing. So if we are to believe that there has been communication about this recently from the Mueller team to the Giuliani team, we have to believe Rudy Giuliani's account of that, which is an extremely difficult thing to do. But let's do it for the sake of this discussion. But the truth is we have no idea what communication has been going on. But if the Giuliani conditions are what's being communicated to Mueller, is there any way for Mueller to accept those conditions?
It really depends on what Mueller thinks he needs out of this interview. And of course, we don't know all of the cards that he's holding right now. But one thing prosecutors don't do when they need an interview with a witness, they don't negotiate because they have the subpoena power. And it's abundantly clear, at least in my judgment, that they don't plan on indicting the president because they're seeking this interview. According to Giuliani and the president's lawyers, they've already said he's a subject, not a target. So if Mueller needs information that Giuliani and the other lawyers aren't willing to cede them the authority to ask, they'll simply issue a subpoena for the president and then let that run its way through the court process.
How long, Joyce, would that take through the court process?
You know, that's a really good question. It would depend on which grand jury they use. They could either go through D.C. or through Virginia, which would be the Fourth Circuit. Even if those were treated as emergency appeals, it would still stretch on for some time. You would have to have briefing in the Court of Appeals. Then it would likely go up to the United States Supreme Court. They could either decide it or return it in part to the lower court. So we could be looking at a process that would stretch out over months.
And Gene Robinson, that's one of the reasons why Republicans are racing as fast as they can to confirm the next Supreme Court justice is the route that Joyce just described. But the Giuliani game of he wants to testify. The New York Times reporting last night, as if it was breaking news, that there are people in the White House who tell the New York Times that the president really wants to talk to the special prosecutor, but it's his lawyers who are reluctant. There's absolutely no way to back that up. We have no idea whether Donald Trump actually wants to talk to Mueller or not. All the indicators are that he's desperately afraid of talking to Mueller.
Yeah, he ought to be, I think, if he's not. It is true that Donald Trump does appear to believe he can talk his way out of anything, just by lying, basically. And that would be a really, really bad strategy to take into a meeting with the prosecutors, and that surely is what his lawyers are worried about. So I do believe that his lawyers don't want him to go in there and talk. And as to whether he really wants to do it or really doesn't want to do it, who knows? It could depend on the day. But as you said at the beginning, if we're taking Rudy Giuliani's word for this, we are really out on a very slender limb. It's frankly hard to talk about what Rudy says because we know that a lot of it, and I think the technical term for it is total crap. It's just not true.
Let's listen to the way the president's allies are talking about this possible interview publicly. Let's listen to the way Newt Gingrich describes the situation.
I think the president is very unwise to walk into a perjury trap against a group of smart guys who have spent a year's time getting ready to try to kill him. And I think he is not, no one is smart enough to take on all of Mueller's team.
And of course, Maya, there is no such thing as a perjury trap. There are only, all you have in perjury is someone who didn't tell the truth under oath.
That's right.
In other words, Newt Gingrich is saying it would be very unwise for the president to take an oath. But in that, you're seeing a communication to the president's supporters out there, to the president's base, saying this is an unfair process, it's a trap, and it would be the wise course for the president is to avoid this kind of sleazy lawyer trap.
You know, and there's the truth of it, which is it would be extremely ill-advised for the president to talk to Mueller. Anybody who is his attorney would say, don't do it. Because it's not that it's a perjury trap. It's because he has a lot to be concerned about in terms of the questions he will get. He's already got inconsistent statements in the public purview. There's no way you can walk into an interview with a prosecutor with inconsistent statements, including some things that could easily, and in my view, would be an admission of guilt, particularly on an obstruction charge, which is why they don't want obstruction as part of the interview. That part I believe. If there's an interview, they don't want any conversation about obstruction. I think it actually points to something that I think I will disagree with Joyce on. It's one thing to say he's a subject, that Donald Trump is a subject of an investigation. Subjects can become targets. And the fact that they have said he's a subject doesn't mean he can't become a target, which is the very reason why they don't want him to testify. And I think you're absolutely right. This entire political strategy, not legal strategy, but political strategy, has been to convince the Trump base that there is nothing they should be concerned about in terms of Trump's behavior. And here's the question I would ask anyone without regard to political affiliation. If you have nothing to hide, you cooperate. This is not cooperation.
Yeah, and Joyce, to that issue of subject versus target, it's a long time ago that we got this information that they were told he was a subject. I think it was last year. And so there's been plenty of time for that to have shifted.
That's true, and as Maya says, many of us have sort of contemplated, could there be such a significant quantum of evidence against the president at some point that he would become a target? But DOJ has a long-standing policy for reasons that folks have debated whether they're still viable or not, but it concludes the sitting president cannot be indicted. There are many people who believe that Mueller will not buck that precedent, particularly since he brought with him from the Solicitor General's office an appellate lawyer, Michael Dreeben, who's known for his institutionalist views. And so the consensus seems to be among many people that Mueller would be far more likely to include all of this evidence in a report that would go up on the Hill, that would form the body potentially of an impeachment proceeding if the folks on the Hill at that point in time were to decide to go that direction, rather than making the president the target of an investigation and ultimately an indictment.
Oh, so Joyce, when you're using the word target, you just mean in direct relationship to the other word indictment.
Yeah, exactly. And I should say, Lawrence, that's a term of art within the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Either you're a witness, a subject, or a target.
But he is, in effect, Gene Robinson, a target for impeachment in the outcome of this investigation, especially on the question of obstruction of justice. The only person who could obstruct justice in this story is Donald Trump.
Well, and certainly the only person who's done it repeatedly and in public, to say nothing of what he might have done in private that we don't know about. I guess one question I would have about this whole stage of the investigation is whether the president could, in fact, be named if there is a conspiracy alleged in the final analysis by Mueller, if he could be named as an unindicted co-conspirator, as Richard Nixon was many years ago. Is that a possibility either to Joyce or Maya?
Maya, what do you think?
I think to Joyce's point, which is an important one, this really does depend on how the Department of Justice looks at this institutionally. We already have a Congress that's going after Rod Rosenstein for impeachment, literally for acquitting his responsibility to the United States of America. It's very hard to know, but I actually think, and I'm one of the folks that thinks that it also depends what the court of public opinion says. If there is sufficient evidence that becomes public that Donald Trump committed crimes beyond obstruction of justice, which I think is already in the public record, that there could be a reckoning that creates even potentially a constitutional crisis. But certainly unindicted co-conspirator, I would think, would be a possibility if there is sufficient direct evidence.
Joyce Vance, last word on unindicted co-conspirator.
I think it's likely that we will see the president as an unindicted co-conspirator, and what that means is he won't be named, he won't be indicted, And Justice Department policy is not to include the name of a target that you don't indict in a case. So that's why his name won't be used, as much as we saw in Mueller's most recent indictment, where people quickly realized that Roger Stone was the person referenced in a series of conversations. We might see the president in a cameo appearance like that in a subsequent Mueller indictment.
Joyce Vance, Maya Wiley, Gene Robinson, thank you for starting us off tonight. Really appreciate it. When we come back, Ivanka Trump proved today that she is the only member of the White House staff who knows she absolutely cannot be fired. She said she disagreed with her father's policy of separating children from their parents on the southern border. She did not explain why she did absolutely nothing about it, and why she hasn't visited the southern border to tell her father what is really happening to those children. And Republicans continue to try to rush the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court so that perhaps he will be there in time to rule on any appeal of any issue involving Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller and the President of the United States.
The Last Word is sponsored by One A Day with Nature's Medley.
Fruits and veggies are essential to your health, but it's tough to get enough of their nutrients. New One A Day with Nature's Medley is the only complete multivitamin with antioxidants from one total serving of fruits and veggies. Try New One A Day with Nature's Medley.
Your call will be answered by the next available representative. Thank you for holding. How may I assist you?
We were just broken into, and we need a home security system.
Oh, sorry, wrong department. Please hold.
The best home security isn't hard to get. With Simply Safe, you can get comprehensive, professionally monitored home security online without the hold time or runaround. Order today and get free shipping. You'll feel safe at home or your money back. Go to staysimplysafe.com.
Olay Regenerist wipes out the competition. Hydrating better than $100, $200, even $400 creams. With our B3 complex, beautiful skin doesn't have to cost a fortune. Olay.
We're Grant Thornton. We are an audit, tax, and advisory firm, part of a global network of 50,000 employees in over 130 countries. Offering faster, tailored solutions, and with a commitment to quality. So why haven't you heard of us? Because when you're as focused on serving your clients as we are, it's hard to beat your own drum.
America's best sales event is on at Team Nissan. Save big on our award-winning lineup, like a brand new Nissan Altima.
Oh, espectacular.
Just $17,988. Or save up to $12,000 off a Titan truck. Or get 0% financing up to 72 months. Rush to Team Nissan, your #1 volume dealer in the Tri-County. For America's best now. In the Oxnard Auto Center or on the web at teamnissandirect.com.
Welcome to Toyota's National Clearance Event. Only happens once a year. We've got the last of the 2018s. Get in here.
At Toyota's National Clearance Event, you can get incredible deals on the last of the 2018s. Offers end September 4th.
I think we need more signs.
Toyota, let's go places.
You know you love watching sports and your favorite show or movie in HD, especially when it's free. Spectrum TV gives you more free HD than any provider, including thousands of on-demand options. Enjoy Spectrum TV.
The Trump White House held a campaign event in the White House press briefing room today.
Our focus here today is simply to tell the American people we acknowledge the threat. It is real, it is continuing, and we're doing everything we can to have a legitimate election that the American people can have trust in.
Faced with some recent very bad polls for Republicans, the Trump team decided to put on a show in the White House today demonstrating how seriously they take the issue of election security, with 96 days to go before the election that will determine which party is in control of the impeachment process. The Trump political team obviously realizes that the president's lies about maybe it wasn't Russia that attacked our election are not working. And knowing they can't get the president to say the right thing, they decided to use cabinet members to do that today. The president is obviously so worried about who will be in charge of the impeachment process that he threw himself into a Senate campaign in Pennsylvania tonight, in which the Republican challenger Lou Barletta is polling 15 points behind the Democratic incumbent Senator Bob Casey. And there is an even more deeply disturbing poll in Texas tonight for Republicans, showing Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke in a statistical tie with Republican Senator Ted Cruz. On Saturday, the president will campaign in an Ohio congressional district that he won by 11 points. And there will be a special election there on Tuesday. The Democrat, Danny O'Connor, is in a statistical tie with Republican Troy Balderson in that race. A Democrat has not held that seat since 1980. Joining our discussion now, Mike Murphy, Republican strategist who has advised both Mitt Romney's and Senator John McCain's presidential campaigns, and Jonathan Alter, columnist for the Daily Beast. Both are MSNBC political analysts. Mike, these numbers look like problems for Republicans. What do you see when you look at them?
Yeah, it's kind of winter is coming, I fear. This was an interesting trip to Pennsylvania. You know, these rallies are mostly about the president wanting love and adoration of crowds. He went there because there's a lot of history for Trump. Luzerne County, Wilkes-Barre, Lou Barletta, the congressman from that area who's running for Senate, who's behind double digits, but running, is an early Trump supporter and one of his favorite members of Congress. And to the president's credit, that is a county where he massively overperformed. It's a place where he really spiked up. Now, the problem is, if Lou Barletta wants to win that Senate race, he better get out of his own district, which is only maybe 80,000 voters out of the 2.5 million statewide, and get to the Philadelphia suburbs where the action is. And the problem is he can't take Trump there because Trump can't get arrested in Bucks or Montgomery County. So this was no political masterstroke today at all. It was just the president doing his routine to an adoring crowd of Republican primary voters, and I'm sure it made him feel good. I don't think it moved the needle.
Jonathan Alter, a tie in the Senate race in Texas with Ted Cruz as of tonight?
It's unbelievable. I mean, if the Democrats manage to knock off Ted Cruz this year, they will be dancing in the streets. And it's not clear that it's going to happen. Texas has been a strongly Republican state for a long time. Cruz is, pretty effective at the cut and thrust of politics, and he has a lot at his disposal, including a lot of money to try to take Beto O'Rourke down. But O'Rourke's got the momentum now. And so this is the kind of thing that indicates there could be a true blue tsunami that goes beyond retaking the House and goes down even to the state legislatures, and really is a kind of a transformative election. But I don't think we're there yet. I think Democrats have this habit of kind of going on Miller time, going, oh, okay, we got this in the bag. All the signs, Mike Murphy's telling us on TV, winter's coming. We don't have to dig deep in our pockets. We don't have to work that hard because this thing is done. And I think that would really be to misunderstand the history of elections and misunderstand recent elections where Democrats have not turned out in midterms. That's the recent history. They don't show up. So unless that trend is changed, it's not at all clear that the Democrats will do as well as expected in November.
Let's take a look at the president attacking the news media tonight in Pennsylvania. It's a very familiar bit that we've seen at all of these rallies. Let's just take a peek at tonight's version.
But they can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news.
To which Mike Murphy tweeted today in anticipation of that very moment. My advice to media, Ray, out of control, Trump-driven crowd hostility at his rallies, boycott them. Send in an AP pool reporter and AP pool photographer, nothing more. Take away his oxygen for a while. Mike, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if there's a TV camera there, we're all going to have access to anything he says that might be newsworthy or worth putting on the air. There's not a thing he said tonight in that rally that has made it into this show in any serious way.
If he's going to act the way he acts, and I'd say this about any politician of any party, and not make any news. He's the president. You got to cover him, but you don't have to cover him like it's the D-Day invasion. You know, there's no need to really cover it with anything other than a pool. And Trump walks into these rallies and he looks in the back and he counts how many sticks and cameras there are. And if he sees one, he'll know the calculus is turning. So this is a decision point, I think, for the media to decide if they're complicit in this because they like the box office of having their talent arguing with Trump and all this back and forth. Or is there real journalistic value here? Is it just showbiz? Because I don't see it. Cover it with a pool reporter. I don't think there's any need to put on the show now that, frankly, the president uses to reinforce his base supporters where the media is very unpopular. So it's good box office for Trump. The question is the media more interested in that or the journalistic realities of this, which is, I think, they're being used and, frankly, abused.
John Alter, veteran of the campaign trail who has stood at more rallies as a reporter than any of us can count. Is there any value to sending reporters into that room?
No, I think Mike is absolutely right, and I think we actually could go further than that. You know, traditionally, reporters are really competitive with each other.
Yeah.
But as Eleanor Roosevelt said during World War II, this is no ordinary time, right? And I think reporters have to sort of work together now more, and they do that when there's a pool situation. They have to do what Mike is suggesting, and if the president crosses a line in attacking somebody personally, and he's done this, they have to think about whether they might just want to haul out of the press room.
Yeah,
walk out.
And there's
walk out. There's nothing stopping them from doing that.
And there is no news organization, no employer of any of the news reporters at those events who can guarantee the safety of their personnel at those events.
That's right. That's a real concern.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to get hurt.
Mike Murphy, to my surprise, you got Jonathan Alter's agreement on this because I thought Jonathan was going to stick with his. I mean, we've all seen Jonathan at how
well, he's a friend of mine, but ideologically, I'm going to have a nightmare tonight. I think I'll get my head examined.
Mike Murphy, Jonathan Alter, thank you both for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And when we come back, Ivanka Trump said that she disagrees with her father's policy of separating children from their parents at the southern border. But Ivanka Trump did not say why she has done absolutely nothing about it.
Is this AT&T Innovations? Yeah, wow. This must be for one of our new unlimited wireless plans. Comes with a ton of entertainment options. Great. Can you sign for this? Yeah. Hey, what's in that one? That's a shark.
New and only with AT&T, you can get unlimited data, 30-plus channels of live TV, and your choice of things like HBO or Pandora Premium. More for your thing. That's our thing. Visit att.com.
You thought that bandage would protect me? See the new skin over there? How could you not know it's the flexible liquid bandage? It seals out bad stuff like water and dirt. Hey, there's a spray, too.
New skin. Apply, seal, heal.
Online dating? I know people meet that way, but where would I even begin?
Open laptop, go to OurTime.com, look for free. It's easy to take a look on Our Time, the fastest growing dating site for people over 50.
And done.
Someone order a bunk bed? Oh, so you're coming this week?
Get the feeling at Wayfair.com.
Overwhelming air fresheners can send you running. So try Febreze One with no aerosols and no heavy perfumes, so you can spray and stay. Febreze One.
Salads should look like this. Crisp leaves of lettuce, freshly made dressing, clean food that looks this good, delivered to your desk. Now delivering to home or office. Panera, food as it should be.
Excuse me. I thought we were putting that on the back.
No. Won't work if there are leaves blocking it, so it only works right here.
Well, it's pretty ugly there.
That's pretty ugly. It's not ugly.
Pretty ugly.
I'm still hearing pretty.
No, I'm saying it's super ugly.
Super too? Yeah. Would you go online and put that in review for me?
Yeah, I'm gonna go online right now.
Yeah? But those words, right? Super pretty.
I got words.
Satellite TV is selling
I
it.
trust you.
Don't buy it. For no ugly dish, choose Spectrum.
When you rent a car on Turo, you're renting from a real person. No shuttle rides, no waiting in line, and no wandering a car lot. This is better than your typical car rental. This is Turo. Download the app today.
Joe speaks truth to power. He is destroying the Republican Party for years to come with access to the people who matter. From the halls of Congress to the Oval Office. Morning Joe, weekdays 6 to 9 on MSNBC.
Ivanka Trump publicly proved today that she is the only White House staffer who knows she cannot be fired. She did that by saying two things that no one else in the White House would dare to say. On the same day that the White House press secretary disgracefully ran around in angry verbal circles, refusing to say that the news media is not the enemy of the people, Ivanka Trump said this.
No, I do not feel that the media is the enemy of the people.
Looks easy when Ivanka Trump does it. But the White House press secretary wouldn't dare say anything like that today. She wouldn't dare disagree with the president who says that the news media is the enemy of the people. Ivanka Trump also said this today.
I am very vehemently against family separation and the separation of parents and children.
Very vehemently. Not vehemently enough to resign from her job working for a president who would do such a thing. Not vehemently enough to actually go to the southern border when her father was ripping those children away from their parents and witness it all up close and report back to him on what his cruelty actually looks like. Not vehemently enough to visit the children in their cages in Texas. Not vehemently enough to try to find the infant babies when no one knew where they were. Infant babies that were in her father's custody. She didn't feel it vehemently enough to go down there and see how the girls were being treated, to make sure that the boys and the girls were safe from abuse. She did not feel vehemently enough about it to sit in a federal courtroom in McAllen, Texas, and watch an immigration judge treat Spanish-speaking 3-year-olds with no lawyers as adults, and bring her eyewitness experience of that legal atrocity back to her father to get him to stop his unspeakable cruelty to those children. Ivanka Trump was not so vehemently opposed to children being ripped out of the arms of their mothers that she actually did anything about it. Ivanka Trump added this personal note today.
I am a daughter of an immigrant. My mother grew up in communist Czech Republic, but we are a country of laws. So, she came to this country legally.
And what if she didn't? What if Ivanka Trump's mother, Donald Trump's first wife, violated immigration laws of multiple countries, including the United States, on her way to becoming the first Mrs. Trump and the mother of a daughter who feels so vehemently opposed to ripping children out of their mother's arms at the border that she did absolutely nothing about it? Immigration reporter Ora Bogado noticed that comment this morning by Ivanka Trump about her mother and raised a series of important questions about Ivanka Trump's mother's manipulation and violation of immigration law to get into the United States. And it's an easy story to tell because the first Mrs. Trump told the story herself in her book that she published just last year. Ora Bogado posted the pages of Ivanka Trump's book in which she explains that when she was 22, she married an Austrian skier named Alfred Winkelmeyer just to get an Austrian passport. And in her book, Ivanka Trump said, the marriage wouldn't be real. It was only for me to get the necessary papers. That is a classic fraudulent marriage according to immigration law, but that marriage got Ivanka Trump's mother an Austrian passport. And she used that Austrian passport to travel to Canada, where she lived before finally moving to the United States to marry Donald Trump. And while she was still living in Montreal, she made the 2-hour drive down to Jay Peak in Vermont because she liked the skiing there so much. And in her book, she said, "The snow is dry here and much lighter than in France or Italy. The powder was so light, I could ski circles around the Americans. In no time, I became a ski instructor at Jay Peak and taught kids how to race." In other words, in no time, Ivanka Trump's mother became the kind of criminal that Donald Trump's immigration and customs enforcement agents are now rounding up in workplaces around America and deporting. She was illegally working as a ski instructor in the United States while living in Montreal on an Austrian passport. Now, to any fair-minded person, what the first Mrs. Trump did to get out of her home country and make it to the United States was completely understandable. The fake marriage, the works. Laura Bogado put it this way after telling the Ivana Trump story on Twitter today. People do what they can to get to the U.S. They fake marriages, they cross borders, they get by on unauthorized labor, they have children which are pejoratively called anchor babies. Was Ivanka Trump an anchor baby? What is an anchor baby? Were her brothers anchor babies? Their mother was not a citizen of the United States when they were born. The first Mrs. Trump did not become a citizen until 11 years after her marriage to Donald Trump. Ivanka Trump's mother told her story about getting into the United States in a book written last year, with her daughter working in a White House that was trying to deport people like her mother when her mother was working at a ski resort in Vermont. And the first Mrs. Trump told that story innocently and openly just last year because she trusted that we would all understand and accept everything that she did, including every violation of law, from Czechoslovakian law to Austrian law to Canadian law to American law, to find a better life for herself in this country. And that is a truly American story. It was then, and it still is now. Ivanka Trump owes her very existence to her mother's dream for a better life in America. And now Ivanka Trump and her father are trying to crush that dream for anyone who comes to this country the way Ivanka Trump's mother did.
A very busy news day.
Today's high-stakes confrontation.
Let's go live to the border where our colleague... Exclusive video.
The country's top intelligence officials testifying.
NBC News gets an exclusive look inside.
Live here at the nation's capital.
There's now an open investigation. Blockbuster new reporting today on this...
This is the deadliest school shooting.
The Supreme Court upheld the revised version.
Well, this new report comes amid a staggering amount of news.
Exclusively here.
NBC News was first out with this scoop
today. It's been
today.
an extraordinary night watching this develop. So, a lot to talk about.
Fact is, every insurance company hopes you drive safely. But Allstate actually helps you drive safely with DriveWise. It lets you know when you go too fast and brake too hard. With feedback to help you drive safer, giving you the power to actually lower your cost. Unfortunately, you can't do anything about that. Now that you know the truth, are you in good hands?
Why did I want a Crest 3D White Smile? Dinner date. Meeting his parents' dinner date. So I used Crest.
Crest 3D White removes 95% of surface stains in just 3 days for a whiter smile that will win them over. Crest. Healthy, beautiful smiles for life.
Got a stinky sink? Stop drain odors, backups, and clogs with the cleansing and deodorizing power of Sandy Sticks. Now with a new lemon fresh scent. Drop in one and you're done. Just one Sandy Stick a month dissolves over time, flushing foul odors with a powerful blend of concentrated enzymes and lemon oil that break down and eliminate food, grease and grime buildup, keeping your pipes clean and odor-free and your home smelling lemon fresh. Stop embarrassing drain odors and get Sandy Sticks now in lemon fresh, original unscented, and other great scents. Now available at these fine retailers.
To most, he's Phil Mickelson, pro golfer. To me, he's, well, Dad. So when his joint pain from psoriatic arthritis got really bad, it scared me. And what could that pain mean?
Joint pain could mean joint damage. Enbrel helps relieve joint pain, helps stop irreversible joint damage, and helps skin get clearer. Enbrel may lower your ability to fight infections, serious, sometimes fatal events, including infections, tuberculosis, lymphoma, other cancers, nervous system and blood disorders, and allergic reactions have occurred. Tell your doctor if you've been someplace where fungal infections are common, or if you're prone to infections, have cuts or sores, have had hepatitis B, have been treated for heart failure, or if you have persistent fever, bruising, bleeding, or paleness. Don't start Enbrel if you have an infection like the flu.
Since Enbrel, Dad's back to being Dad.
Visit Enbrel.com and use the joint damage simulator to see how your joint damage could be progressing.
Ask about Enbrel. Enbrel. FDA approved for over 15 years.
We use Angie's List because we can always find great local pros.
For any type of home project.
I use Angie's List if I need to find a plumber.
An electrician.
A painter.
I always use Angie's List because it's free. It's free for me to read reviews written by real customers.
We can check their reputation to make sure they do quality work.
And now, to save time, Angie's List can actually match my project to a few qualified pros who can do the job.
To get the most reviews from real customers, all for free, go to angieslist.com today.
If you keep on eating, we'll keep it coming. All you can eat riblets and tenders at Applebee's. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Would you send your children to these centers? Ms. Higgins.
I certainly think that in general practice, people would prefer to be free to move about. I can tell you that the centers that I saw did, as described, have schools and...
So you would send your child to these centers?
Yes, that's a difficult question to answer.
Turning our discussion now, Jonathan Ryan, Executive Director for the Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services in Texas. And Jonathan, as you know, Congressman Vicente Gonzalez immediately wrote a letter to Ivanka Trump today after she made her public comments, inviting her to come to the border, to come down there where you have been, and to see firsthand what's happening there. If Ivanka Trump did go to the southern border now, and if she did go to the federal courthouse and watch these hearings, and if she did meet the children who are being held in those cages, there are still children in effect, her father's custody, what would she be able to go back to the White House and tell her father?
Well, I think that if Ivanka Trump, as a mother, as a human being, was truly vehemently opposed to these policies, then she would be doing something about it. She would be resigning. She's an advisor in what is one of the, if not the most powerful policy offices in the entire world. And if you're at my office or if you're in that White House, if you are part of that advisory team and you truly are at a breaking point with the policy, if you are truly uncomfortable with the policy, then the right thing to do is to resign. I think that Ivanka also, frankly, needs to check her privilege, because my heart, obviously, like everyone else's, is breaking for her reaching a low point over this summer. This has been a low point for our entire country. This has been the lowest point in the lives of thousands of children who were separated, as we now know, on purpose by this government, by this administration, who targeted families for this cruel and torturous treatment. She's also acting as if this is in the past, as if this is some closed chapter of American history that she's regretful for. To your point, Lawrence, this is going on today. I'm reporting from the border, from South Texas, where this issue rages forward. There are hundreds of fathers at the Carnes Detention Center right now who were separated from their children, held for a long period of time, months without them, and who have now been joined with their children in an internment camp that's run by a private prison company here in South Texas. They, since this morning, have been on hunger strike, hundreds of them with their children, because they've reached that point of desperation where the only thing that they have control over, any autonomy over now, is their own bodies. And they're just begging for an answer. They want to know, are they going to be deported? Are they going to be released like other families were? There appears to be absolutely no rhyme or reason as to why some were released, and many, many more are currently still being held in indefinite detention. If she were to visit the border, which I doubt she will do, she would see that it's no different than it was weeks ago when our entire country was captivated by these images. It's still going on. We see it every day in our daily work. And I don't know if she's ready to see that. I don't think she looks to be accepting the truth that she has prime agency in this policy.
You know, she actually, in the same interview today, talked about how much she enjoys getting out of the White House and traveling around the country, by which she appeared to mean going to Trump rallies and Trump speeches, because those are the only examples she gave in this. And so this White House advisor, who loves getting out of the White House, has apparently very strong feelings, according to her, about this policy, shows no interest in traveling down to where you are and actually studying the effects of the policy.
No interest in traveling here. I'm sure like she had no interest in going to Charlottesville and speaking with the victims of the terrorists that her father's administration sided with, speaking with members of the military who have been attacked because of their status as members of the LGBTQ community. At Raíces, we fight every day for a world where immigrants' rights are respected, where they are treated with dignity and equality, no matter their ethnicity or their age, their race, or their ability to pay. What we are seeing here is, frankly, in my opinion, more dangerous and more insidious to have an administration that is in some way being treated like a royal family, where you've got one member who's lashing out and the other who is somehow trying to button up the loose ends and act as though she is on the good side of history. She's not.
Jonathan Ryan, thank you for joining us once again from Texas tonight. Really appreciate it.
Try sniping.
1 week.
So we're attacking. I'm gonna be mod.
Donald Trump made a mistake, apparently not listening to Mitch McConnell about the difficulty the Kavanaugh paperwork would create in the confirmation process. That's next.
Dear Foremothers, your society was led by a woman who governed thousands, commanded armies, yielded to no one.
You should go behind him.
When I found you in my DNA, I learned where my strength comes from. My name is Courtney McKinney, and this is my Ancestry DNA story.
Now with 2 times more geographic detail than other DNA tests. Order your kit at AncestryDNA.com.
Promote what makes your business great with Vistaprint business cards. With more shapes, paper stocks, and finishes to choose from, you can create the card that's right for your business. 500 standard cards start at just $9.99 when you enter promo code 500cards at Vistaprint.com.
Olay Ultra Moisture Body Wash gives skin the moisture it needs and keeps it there longer. With lock-in moisture technology, the skin is petal smooth. After all, a cleanser's just a cleanser, unless it's Olay.
Using Ebates, I've earned $756.28. I've made close to $2,000. Ebates basically gets a commission from the stores that you shop at, and then they share the commission with you. Every store that you shop at will be on Ebates. It's free, it's fun, it's super simple, and it's safe. Why wouldn't I use it? Sign up for Ebates, get cash back, it's awesome.
Sign up for free, shop at your favorite stores, get paid. Join today and get a $10 bonus at Ebates.com.
I've always been independent. I had a husband who was my vision, but when he died, I knew I was in big trouble. Your service was ideal for me.
At Care.com, you find to help your mom needs to stay independent at home. Search for lots of local caregivers who can help with meals, housekeeping, personal care, and more. It costs less than you think, and it's easy to pay.
One girl in particular, I think she thought I was her mother or her grandmother. I really do.
Care.com.
Salonpas. We're the world leader in medicinal pain patches. Our latest innovation, Salonpas Lidocaine, using hydrogel-based technology with the maximum strength lidocaine you can buy without a prescription. Salonpas Lidocaine. Nothing is proven stronger or more effective against pain.
You know why God made snakes before lawyers? He needed the practice. Gainful employment, and in 10 months, poof, I'm a lawyer again.
Why don't you stop running the game on me and just tell me about the job?
Step into my office.
Fair? Let's talk about fair.
I decide what he deserves. Wish me luck.
When it comes to making perfect pollo, it's all about choice. Like our choice to citrus marinate only fresh, never frozen chicken, our choice to always grill it slow over an open flame, and of course, our choice to never compromise. But now, the choice is all yours. Bring home a family choice dinner today with your choice of bacon avocado or avocado mango salad, 8 pieces of our famous fire grilled chicken, and 2 delicious sides, all for just $20. El Pollo Loco, fresh from the grill.
The Republican race to confirm a Trump Supreme Court justice in time to hear possible appeals of a Trump matter involving a special prosecutor hit another stumbling block today. It turns out Mitch McConnell was right in warning Donald Trump not to nominate Brett Kavanaugh as a Supreme Court justice. Mitch McConnell warned that Brett Kavanaugh's massive paper trail would be a problem in the confirmation process, and today the National Archives said they will not be able to deliver to the Senate Judiciary Committee all of the records that Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley requested until the end of October. The Grassley request is actually a tiny percentage of the materials the archives has involving Brett Kavanaugh. Today, Senator Grassley said the confirmation hearing would go forward in September, even if the archives has not produced the materials that Senator Grassley said the committee needed. The George W. Bush Presidential Library is turning over some documents involving Brett Kavanaugh, but those documents are being screened by attorneys for the Bush Presidential Library, including one who has represented Steve Bannon, Reince Priebus, and Don Lemon in Russia-related investigations. Joyce Vance is back with us. And Joyce, it turns out Mitch McConnell was right. This paper trail is enormous, and it's not going to be in place, apparently, in time for a confirmation hearing.
It is enormous, and the problem with that is we're now looking at a process where instead of using the archivist, a nonpartisan process that was really created in response to excesses during the Nixon White House to screen documents, we have a process where lawyers who represent President Bush in his personal capacity will be making a lot of the decision about what gets turned over to the Senate for its review.
Chuck Schumer said today the unprecedented process appears to be designed intentionally by Republicans to deny the Senate and the American people the information they need to evaluate this critically important nomination. And what is so strange is we've never seen this before. The chairman of the committee requested the information, said the committee needs it. The archive says we're not going to have it in time for your scheduled hearing. And the chairman of the committee said we'll do it without it.
It's an artificial deadline, and obviously they want the result. They want to get the justice confirmed as opposed to ensuring the integrity of the process. A really good comparison is Justice Kagan, who had worked inside of the White House, and they turned over papers both from her time in the counsel's office and her work on the Domestic Policy Council. But now we'll have, for Judge Kavanaugh, a process where only his work in the White House counsel's office will be turned over, not his 3 years as the White House staff secretary, a job that he said was tremendously important for determining his judicial outlook. So this results-oriented process will really deprive the Senate of much of the paperwork it should be reviewing.
Joyce Vance, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Tonight's last word is next.
It felt great not having hepatitis C. It's like a load off my shoulders. I was just excited for it to be over.
Harvoni is a revolutionary treatment for the most common type of chronic hepatitis C. It's been prescribed to more than 250,000 people and is proven to cure up to 99% of patients who've had no prior treatment with 12 weeks. Certain patients can be cured with just 8 weeks of Harvoni. Before starting Harvoni, Your doctor will test to see if you've ever had hepatitis B, which may flare up and cause serious liver problems during and after Harvoni treatment. Tell your doctor if you've ever had hepatitis B, a liver transplant, other liver or kidney problems, HIV, or any other medical conditions, and about all the medicines you take, including herbal supplements. Taking amiodarone with Harvoni can cause a serious slowing of your heart rate. Common side effects of Harvoni include tiredness, headache, and weakness.
Ready to let go of Hep C?
Ask your Hep C specialist about Harvoni.
Quick! The quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker and is 2 times more absorbent. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Fruits and veggies are essential to your health, but it's tough to get enough of their nutrients. New One A Day with Nature's Medley is the only complete multivitamin with antioxidants from 1 total serving of fruits and veggies. Try New One A Day with Nature's Medley.
Susanna, I'm on Match looking for someone who's not just my boyfriend, but my best friend.
Looking for a real relationship?
When I'm not at work, you'll typically find me on the beach or hiking with friends. Something I'm good at, the piano. Can't wait to meet you.
Check out Match right now for free. Hey, renovators. Time to dream bigger. Wayfair, you're my new secret weapon. You got what I need for my renovation. I love all these options, so much to choose from. Bedrooms and basements, everything you service is sweet. And my job is complete. Start your renovation at wayfair.com.
Why did I want a Crest 3D White Smile? Dinner date. Meeting his parents' dinner date. So I used Crest.
Crest 3D White removes 95% of surface stains in just 3 days for a whiter smile that will win them over. Crest. Healthy, beautiful smiles for life. Getting to know you. Getting to know all about you.
Know how your DNA connects you to the world. Get 30% off each kit at 23andme.com or a local retailer.
There's an app that lets you order from all your favorite local restaurants. So you can order this,
you could just,
or this, or even this. Order from over 80,000 restaurants nationwide, right to your door. Grubhub, restaurants you love, delivered.
Hate is on the rise in America.
Hey, could you turn that down so you don't have to mute
normalized.
It's just a little bit loud.
And destroying lives.
When Gabe got those tattoos, I just thought his life was over.
I've dedicated my life to pulling people out of hate. I know how these people think and how to help because I used to be one of them.
This is a game where you either play a game or you watch TV. You can't do both. You gotta hear for footsteps.
Time for tonight's last word.
Yeah. Donald Trump is telling his attorney general to shut down the investigation of Donald Trump. Rudy should tell him that just because he's doing it in public doesn't mean it's not obstruction of justice. Public urination is still urination.
And tonight's last word is thank you to
Oh my
our
gosh, I just
summer
muted him, and
interns,
before I muted
Aaron,
him,
Aaron, and
he was watching
Jamie,
something about urination.
And they all know that the 11th hour with Brian Williams
definitely
starts
don't need that.
right now.
Yeah.
New tonight, raging against the media, Donald Trump's Pennsylvania barn burner. He claims he's being hindered by the Russian hoax, but says absolutely nothing about Russian election meddling. Meanwhile, back at the White House, the president's top intel and law enforcement officials show a united front
I've literally
and say
been
what
playing
Trump
this all
wants,
day
that Russia
because I've been
poses
trying to
a
get
threat
better
for
at it.
upcoming elections.
I'm not used to
Also
this
new tonight, Robert
anymore.
Mueller
I
is looking
forgot
to speak to
everything. Oh my
another
gosh.
person with ties to that Trump Tower meeting, and Ivanka Trump off message on her White House low point, and a break from her dad on a popular Trump talking point. The 11th hour on a Thursday night begins now. Good evening once again from our NBC News headquarters here in New York. I'm Nicole Wallace in for Brian tonight. He'll be back tomorrow. It's day 560 of the Trump administration, and President Trump just wrapped up a rally in Pennsylvania where he ramped up his attacks on the media. Just hours earlier, the president's top national security officials delivered a forceful warning on Russian election interference, promising to protect the integrity of U.S. elections. But there was no mention of Russian meddling at tonight's rally, though the president did bring up his meeting with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki.
In Helsinki, I had a great meeting with Putin. We discussed everything. I had a great meeting. We got along really well. By the way, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. That's a really good thing. Now we're being hindered by the Russian hoax. It's a hoax.
Did they switch the positions of some of the cameras in this game in the past couple months?
I'll tell you what, Russia's very unhappy
I don't know.
that Trump won. That I can tell.
I honestly don't even remember
But I got
anything.
along great with him.
While I was trying to check, I got killed. I don't know why I was trying to check.
Wow, that was great. That was great. A couple of hours later, I started hearing these reports.
I don't know. I really need help. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this.
They wanted me to walk up. Here's a podium here. They wanted me to walk up and go like this.
All right, well, let's see how
you
They wanted me to go up and have a boxing
pressing
match.
L1, dude.
I said, whatever happened to diplomacy?
He liked me, really, really liked me. President Trump also saved plenty of time to complain about the press.
Fake news. Despite only negative publicity, only negative stories from the fakers back there. And even these people back here, these horrible, horrendous people, even these people back there stand, look at it. It looks like the Academy Awards or so many. You ever see this? They can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting
Oh, that's right there.
Nice. As we mentioned, it was a whole different scene during today's White House briefing, where we heard these clear warnings on Russian election interference from top administration officials.
Our democracy itself is in the crosshairs.
Oh.
Free and fair elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, and it has become clear that they are the target of our adversaries, who seek, as the DNI just said, to sow discord and undermine our way of life.
Our focus here today is simply to tell the American people we acknowledge the threat. It is real, it is continuing, and we're doing everything we can to have a legitimate election that the American people can have trust in.
The reality is it's going to take all of us working together to hold the field because this threat is not going away. As I have said consistently, Russia attempted to interfere with the last election and continues to engage in malign influence operations to this day.
Yeah, that's definitely.
This is a threat we need to take extremely seriously and to tackle and respond to with fierce determination and focus.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders told NBC News today that President Trump instructed his team to speak at today's news conference. Asked when the president made the request, Sanders didn't respond. And it's important to point out, just last Friday, the president met with his National Security Council on election security for less than 1 hour. After the meeting, the White House released a statement that said the administration would not tolerate foreign interference in elections, but it did not mention Russia by name. Let's bring in our lead-off panel for a Thursday night. Jeremy Bash, former chief of staff at the CIA and the Pentagon, and 3 Pulitzer Prize winners were with us tonight. Carol Leonnig, investigative reporter for the Washington Post, Phil Rucker, White House bureau chief for the Washington Post, and Matt Apuzzo, reporter for the New York Times. Jeremy Bash, let me start with you. The analysis in the national security community seems to be that the men and women who were in the White House briefing room were speaking to U.S. policy, were speaking for America against Russia, and that the president is sort of a rogue actor. What do you make of the fact that the president, even if he's a rogue actor, was the person who was alone in a room with Vladimir Putin? Does it matter to Vladimir Putin, if he can get Donald Trump in a room alone, that the rest of his national security officials take a tougher line?
Well, for Putin, the only guy that matters is the guy in the Oval Office. So your point is well taken, Nicole. I think it was manifestly the right call and the right message by the national security leaders to stand at the White House and warn against Russian interference in the coming election. I think it was obviously an implicit rebuke of the president's position that there's nothing to worry about with respect to Russian interference. But in essence, what you have here is part of a broad pattern where the national security establishment is in effect ignoring the commander-in-chief. They're basically saying, notwithstanding whatever he tweets, whatever he says, whatever he does, we're going to keep our head down, do our job, and protect the American people.
Matapuzzo, this performance today in the briefing room caps almost a year of awkward testimony. Christopher Wray testified to the fact that he'd never been asked by the president to do anything from a law enforcement standpoint to protect this country. Admiral Rogers testified that on behalf of the NSA, he's really not doing anything extra in the wake of 2016. What do you make of sort of the impotence with which these folks have to go about doing their job without the go-ahead or the green light from the commander-in-chief?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything from the federal law enforcement or intelligence side that suggests that the intelligence community is sort of sitting on its hands, sort of just, well, if somebody told me we had to protect the country, I guess we would.
But I'm not talking about the basic functions of their government agencies, but certainly when there have been, I mean, General Hayden, former CIA director, former NSA head, has called the 2016 attack a political 9/11. Yeah. Certainly there is nothing happening in the government, the executive branch, that mirrors the steps that the national security apparatus took after 9/11.
Well, I mean, I'll go you one better. Even if everybody's on the same page, and even if everybody is, you know, at the highest level of alert going into the election, there's only sort of so much you can prepare for. And as an example, during the Obama administration, the FBI, the CIA, everybody was on alert for Russian interference. And when they saw the hacking that was happening, they looked at it and said, "Okay, yeah, we know this game. This is they're gonna seize the material and they're gonna use it for intelligence purposes." It was only when they weaponized the hacked material and started publishing it through WikiLeaks did they say, "Oh my God, we didn't see this coming." So the question,
another failure of imagination.
Exactly. So I think that, you know, one of the things to be asking now is, sure, you're preparing, but do you really even see what's going to be coming down the pike? Just because if they decide to play again doesn't mean the Russians are going to go to the same playbook.
Phil Rucker, color me skeptical that this performance was anything other than a shiny object to distract from the fact that yesterday the president and people close to him had a moment of concern that he may have obstructed justice or done something that looked a lot like it in plain sight.
That was only yesterday.
By asking, I know, it feels like dog years, it feels like 7 days ago, by asking, ordering, or they're now quibbling about what the definition of the word should is, I think that's Rudy's latest talking point. But was this performance today something long in the works, that they were all asked to submit their remarks, or was this something to change the topic from the mess that the president created yesterday with his early morning tweet about getting Sessions to end the witch hunt?
I think it came about rather quickly, but I don't think it was purely a move to distract from the news yesterday. I think this has been building for some time. We saw Dan Coates a week or two ago raise some alarm in that interview with Andrea Mitchell out in Aspen. We've seen the intelligence...
Alarm is a good way to put it. Wait, you said that. Let me show you his answer about Helsinki. Let's watch that.
In the run-up to the Helsinki summit, U.S. officials, ambassadors to NATO, ambassadors to Russia, said that the president would raise the issue of malign activity with President Putin. But he didn't discuss that, at least at the press conference. You're saying today that the president has directed you to make the issue of election meddling a priority. How do you explain the disconnect between what you are saying, his advisors, and what the president has said about this issue?
I'm not in a position to either understand fully or talk about what happened at Helsinki.
Why not?
That is amazing. I mean, this is the problem, right? It was only Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in that room with their translators. That was by design, because Trump didn't want there to be any note takers. He didn't want there to be any kind of paper trail or official government record of what was discussed, what was agreed to, what Trump said, what Putin said. And so now you have U.S. government officials not sure what happened in that meeting. There's yet to be a public briefing by the administration, but what we have in Moscow is the Kremlin doling out details from those conversations, characterizing it as Trump making verbal agreements with Putin in ways that favor Russia, and we're not getting similar information from the United States. It's now been 2.5 weeks.
Carolina, do you get the sense that anyone in the White House is making the president eat some spinach, if you will, and ramp up the rhetoric and the language from the White House that shows some window into the president or his White House recognizing that Russia is a threat and that pretending that it isn't is bad politics for this White House?
I think it's clear that while some may try to give him some spinach, he's not eating it, and it's you know, taking, for example, the tweets after watching a lot of cable news television about the Paul Manafort trial, the president tweeted something that would only add to a normal prosecutor's view that he is making threatening or urging statements about shutting down a criminal probe. He's making those tweets during an ongoing criminal trial, which is pretty interesting and as well, and there was nobody that was going to stop him. When I asked his lawyers that morning, what are you suggesting to him that he should not do this, they essentially said, you know, that's not really our role here. The president does what he wants to do. This is his megaphone. No one's going to take it away from him.
Does that line up with what you guys understand to be the current state of the interview and these questions?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can see that if you take the White House posture at the beginning of the Mueller investigation, it was very much, we want to do everything we can to avoid a subpoena fight. That's not where the president wants to be. I think you've heard Giuliani say publicly now that we're not really concerned about an indictment. We think this is ultimately a political question, so they're fighting a political fight. If they can take this sort of complicated story and make it, there's a witch hunt, Bob Mueller is out to get the president, him and his team of Democrats, and now he wants to infringe on the power of the president. If he can make those talking points stick, then, you know, he can maybe win some support among Republicans.
And just to avoid impeachment. We're not talking
this has nothing to do with it. This has nothing to do with indictment. This is all about impeachment. This is all about staying in office and keeping your poll numbers up.
Jeremy Bash, I think if that gave the president the solace that you would think it would, that if he's safe from any sort of legal proceeding and all he has to do is malign the special counsel to the point where all the Republicans in the House won't vote to impeach and the senators won't vote to convict him, he wouldn't be acting like such a loon. I mean, what do you make of his comments tonight, his railing on the media, and the conduct that he displayed in that tweet yesterday?
Well, this is part of a larger pattern here, Nicole, where the president fundamentally does not want to succumb to the rule of law. I think fundamentally